Welcome everybody to tonight's coverage of the APL semifinals. I am your host tonight, What2Birdie, and joining me tonight to the wrong side once again, as I always do, it's Quacks. How you doing tonight, Quacks?
I'm doing really good. I'm excited to cast a semifinals match here in the APL. A lot of good players on both teams, a lot of different playstyles. I'm really curious to see how both of them are sort of going to play that out because they have very unique sets of champions, very unique players on both teams. So I like it. I like today's matchup, and I'm looking forward to casting it.
Yeah, it should be a really exciting one. I know we aren't the usual casters that you expect over here in the APL, but hopefully us AGL scrubs will be able to show you guys a good time around here as we've got DZG. DZG Olympus, I believe, is their
Yep.
moniker versus Dorado Gaming Epsilon tonight. Now, Dorado Gaming has had a much easier time throughout their playoff bracket as opposed to DZG, who's had to sort of fight for their spot to be here.
Yeah, Dorado Gaming Epsilon, they've won the last, I believe, 9 games here in a row, showing a lot of different playstyles that they've been able to, accommodate with those wins. Things that they've pulled out like a Gangplank mid, even a Lee Sin mid, those sort of pocket picks that I'm really excited to see from them, see if they can, pull that out here in this series. And it is also worth, noting that the first series that either of these teams played was against each other, and it ended up being a Dorado Gaming Epsilon win, 2-1, I believe, as it was a best of 3. And they looked pretty convincing. A little bit shaky in game 1 and a little bit shaky in game 3, just looking at the stats. But overall, a win's a win. So with that being said, I feel like it is appropriate to go into predictions, Brittany. So do you wanna share those?
Yeah, let's start. We'll start with mine, just since you're handing it off to me. I have always been a DZG hype kind of gal myself. I have worked with the organization before. I think they've got a lot of wonderful players and a lot of wonderful people working behind the scenes. So I put them down as 3-1 over Dorado Gaming Epsilon. Now, obviously, I think that is a little bit of hopium. Perhaps I could very easily see the series going to 5 games, but I'm still going to stay on top of the DZG prediction. I think they've got it today.
Yeah, and me on the other side, just looking at results, I think Dorado Gaming Epsilon, they've just looked incredible, been able to show a lot of variation in their play. So I'm going with Dorado Gaming Epsilon 3-1. And I guess we'll speak for the people that could not quite make it. Bonfire, your usual caster, predicted that Dorado Gaming Epsilon would win 3-2, while PVS sided with Brittany, saying that DZG would win 3-2. So a mixed bag of predictions and results from both casters and producers this series. So yeah, I'm definitely looking for a shake-up series that has a lot of twists and turns, and who knows, maybe it'll take us to 5 games.
Yeah, and I think it is worth mentioning that Dorado Gaming Epsilon recently over in Titan Esports in the finals lost to another contender here in the APL, Rubber Ducky, in a 0-3 matchup, which would really not be what you're expecting, as they had a fairly decent performance versus Rubber Ducky A over here in the APL.
Yeah, and just from casting Rubber Ducky, I believe it was last week over with Bonfire, I can say that Rubber Ducky were definitely a good team. And I know they're not here, and I know I don't want to spend too much time talking about them, but I definitely do hope that Dorado Gaming Epsilon have been able to, mentally recover from a series like that. And specifically, if this does go to 5 games, you also have to keep in mind, mental fortitude. We've seen this over just recently in the AGL, where it did go to 5 games, the series we casted, and some mentals can fall after playing for so many hours, playing so many games. It can get really overbearing for some players. So, mental is also kind of part of the equation when talking about which team could go out victorious in this series.
Yeah, mental fortitude, always an important thing when you're coming into these best of fives. Just getting past that, if you're in a situation where you're like, oh, hey, we're 2-1 down. If we're going to win this game, it's going to come down to the 5 series match. Do we have the stamina to make it all the way through? And speaking of stamina, I think it's a great time to talk about DZG. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, they've had a bit of a rough time getting to this spot in the semifinals, being there down there in the round of 12 and in the quarterfinals, but still managing to come out on top.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the amount of games they've played, and it is quite staggering. They've played quite a bit. And I do also kind of want to move on to, sort of like draft predictions for potentially game 1. You look at draft and you look against Dorado Gaming Epsilon specifically, and they had the first 3 bans. The first 3 bans against them were consistent. They were the same thing basically the whole time. Vi, Hecarim, Jinx, and they never changed basically throughout the series. The only thing that did change was in game 1, where it was against where it was that Gangplank that did end up getting banned, but a lot of ban consistency against Dorado Gaming Epsilon. So I'm curious to see if DZG are going to sort of follow suit in banning what everyone else has banned throughout all of playoffs and throughout all of regular season, or if they're going to switch it up a bit and ban champions that are good against maybe this type of variation that they want to play here in this series.
Yeah, we did talk about it a little bit off of broadcast, but the DZG top laner Invictus Rakan being a really big fan of, in particular, of the Shen pick. And you mentioned, I think specifically, the Gangplank matchup into Shen and how that can be kind of a disastrous one for the Shen. I think both of us expect that Gangplank will not be able to be seen throughout most of this series, but I wonder if there's anything else that we're thinking potentially might be taken off the table.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at bans against both teams, and DZG Olympus, they've had 13 Cassiopeia bans levied against them across 23 games. And we've said it before, but DZG have played quite a lot of games, but 13 bans against that champion in particular, that's quite a bit. And then right behind that is the Hecarim ban. Obviously, targeting Sleepy Giant, who I really want to highlight here in this series. We as casters, we like to try and highlight certain players before the series, and Sleepy Giant is definitely the one that I kind of have my eyes on. You look at the champion pool of this player, and it's an ocean. He's able to play, more meta tank backline picks, not backline picks, but more meta tank champions like the Jarvan, and utilize that to the fullest effect. Obviously, against Team Ambition Chow, he did incredible as he played those in both games 3 and 4. Or he's able to play, more carry type champions. We've seen the Viego from him. We've seen a lot of Graves from him, Hecarim, and even Kindred. So it really is a question of how they want to play around this jungle. And I really do think, depending on how they play around Sleeping Giant, that's going to kind of determine how the rest of the team is going to play.
Yeah, again, as I've worked with DZG in the past, I've cast for Sleeping Giant before. I've seen him in these particular styles of games, and I know for certain that he can be an incredibly dominant carry player when DZG offers him the resources. We are going to be stepping into the pick and ban now as we're getting into just this game 1 of DZG versus Dorado Gaming Epsilon, and already the bans are flying through.
Yup, we can see the Gragas flex being taken away here by DZG, making sure that Dorado Gaming Epsilon can't have that really flexible three-way champion. Gragas, easily one of the best blind picks in the entire meta at the current moment, able to go jungle, mid, and top, and be incredibly effective in all of them with a ton of build variation, a ton of playstyle variation. That I am definitely, I definitely agree with DZG's choice to ban that out.
Yeah, and on the other side for Dorado Gaming, I think the Jarvan, the Graves, and the Seraphine, all very targeted bans. Jarvan may be a little bit more meta-oriented, but as you talked about, we've seen Sleeping Giant perform incredibly well on this pick, so seeing that taken away from him, not too surprising alongside that Graves. Like you mentioned, carry player, Graves is one of those dominant carry champions for him, as we see DZG are going to insta-lock that Senna in the first round. The flexibility of that one really showing its stuff already.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at recent matches, J-Core has yet to pick up this Senna here, so it's a bit of an interesting pickup for them as, yeah, there's no record of what they'll do or how they'll play it. Senna is definitely one of the better champions when you want that sort of late game insurance, right? Obviously stacking up those souls, giving you that range on those auto attacks. So I could see DOGE going for a more range heavy type team comp in response, as we do see the Varus, the Vi, able to really lock down that Senna, lock down those backline carries that DZG might want to put a lot of focus on. It's also known that DZG, they really like to put their ADC on those more immobile style champions, right? Things like Jhin, even like Seraphine, or even like Swain have gone in the bot lane, and they're all immobile. So I definitely think Vi is a good response to that type of playstyle that DZG enjoy playing in the bot lane.
Yeah, speaking of that type of style that DZG enjoys playing, not only in the bot lane, but I think in the mid lane too, that Cassiopeia that you were mentioning earlier managed to slip its way through that first round of bans, and DZG is going to snap that one up for themselves.
Yeah, Cassiopeia, a really lane-dominant champion that, if not careful, can really transition into a late-game monster. But what was really important to highlight from Cassiopeia is that miasma, that ability to make sure that mobility just doesn't happen whatsoever, making sure that the carries of DOGE cannot move. So that really does sort of hinder the visibility, not only to gank, but also for that backline access that she wants with that assault and battery. Not being able to click R on those priority targets, especially when you already have something like the Senna Shroud, which makes it pretty difficult to begin with. This Vi pick is definitely getting hindered here by DZG here in this first phase of pick'ems.
Yeah, and as we end our first phase of the pick and ban, DOGE are going to have a little bit of disparity here, as the jungle and the mid are the two swapped around roles here, as DOGE did have the priority on that Vi, whereas DZG really wanted to grab that Cassiopeia. So I expect we'll see that reflected in the ban somewhat, unless actually Dorado want to keep the focus on this jungle pool for Sleeping Giant.
Yeah, they're making sure that Sleeping Giant, can't get those priority picks. And I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see a Viego ban as the 5th ban, but we'll have to wait and see for them, as it looks like DZG are opting to ban, or at least they're hovering the Olaf away, targeting Big Bald and Thick. He's definitely a player who enjoys a lot of variation when it does come to champions. He's able to play a lot of different champions. He has a ton of variation. Just looking at his stats, here he's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 unique champions across 17 games. So interesting player with a very wide champion pool.
Yeah, and speaking of wide champion pools, it's not the Viego, but it is still another jungle-focused band, Wukong, that has been, I would say, pretty high meta priority across all levels of the league. Also going to be taken away. DZG are not going to have that one in their back pockets. We did sort of skip over the support picks, so while Dorado focus on that 4th round pick, I do want to talk about the Renata versus Tahm Kench matchup here. Renata generally very good into engage supports, and I think into engage style of team compositions, and kind of struggles in areas without that. Whereas Tahm Kench and Cassiopeia and Senna really aren't the team that are going to be running forward into Dorado. They're kind of expecting Dorado to run into them.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the picks here from DZG Olympus, and you really can benefit from the Renata ultimate against the picks that they like to put in those solo lanes here. Things like the Gnar, things like the Shen can really deal a lot of damage, especially if they take something like Grasp of the Undying, or, Gnar with those passive procs, or Shen with those Q procs. Can do a lot of damage if they don't pick wisely. But it looks like we will have the Maokai lock in here for DZG. That could go either jungle or top lane, and those are the 2 positions, it looks like, that are still open for DZG.
Yeah, we're just waiting on this last pick to come through. I will say with these jungle picks, I feel like we've been shifted back a couple of patches, as these have been junglers that have been, I would say, hard focused in terms of patch notes by Riot. These champions have been, I would say, a lot more weakened by some of the recent changes towards the jungles overall, but it looks like that Maokai might actually be headed up towards the top side, as the Hecarim is going to be locked in for who I assume is going to be Sleeping Giant.
Yeah, Sleeping Giant, it's a comfort pick for him here. I mean, there's 9 bans against DZG here when it comes to the Hecarim, so definitely a lot of teams have respected Sleeping Giant's ability to play Hecarim, as he is a very hyper carry focused champion who can deal a lot of damage, ramping up those passive stacks, ramping up that E, and, the later the fight goes, the harder it is to really kill that Hecarim. And you look at DOGE's comp, and they have a decent amount of fighting, longevity fighting, but with things like that Azir, things like that Gwen, and things like that Varus. But, it really is called into question again, like, can Sleeping Giant carry when he has what looks to be a really decent front line with things like the Tahm Kench, like the Maokai? Even, Senna and Cassiopeia provide a little bit of utility for that jungle Hecarim to carry. So it really is just all eyes here on this jungle matchup, and specifically on Sleeping Giant.
Yeah, it's going to really be on DOGE to lock down this Hecarim, and they have the tools for it. They have the Vi cease and desist, and they have that Renata hostile takeover. Even the Azir shuffle to try and separate the rest of the team away from this Hecarim. So there's a lot of potential for DOGE to actually lock down this pick and start to remove some of these more immobile carries. Even if they can do it before the Hecarim really gets online, it's potentially a really big boon for them. I do wonder, though, how the Renata and the Azir are going to fit in with the rest of this matchup, as well as, is this Varus going to be going poke, or will he be going for the on-hit style to try and make his way through these tanks?
Yeah, and I mean, you look at DZG's bot lane, they're doing the classic Senna TK. This is a matchup that has existed this is a pairing that has existed basically as long as these two champions have been around. It's a very safe bot lane with a lot of ability to disengage, dissuade ganks with things like Tom Kench's W being able to just get away and Senna Shroud being able to get away. A lot of sustain with things like the Senna Q, and overall just a lot of scaling. So I would expect a lot of focus from that jungler probably being on this mid lane, making sure that this Cassiopeia can get ahead. Besides Hecarim, this is the champion that really is going to deal a lot of damage in this early and mid game because Senna, takes her time ramping up with those souls, as I've said, to be that late game insurance, which is definitely what I think DZG are going for. Meanwhile, on the other side of DOGE, they have a lot of late game insurance, right? Gwen, Azir are two champions that really thrive in that late game. Gwen, once she gets those two items, whatever they may be, because Gwen has a lot of build variation, and Azir, once he gets 2 to 3 items, can really start to hit hard. So I think it really is going to be a question of jungle and mid lane this game. How well can that jungle mid pairing play around their ability to carry? Because, I mean, if you look at this Vi, it really is going to have to be which lanes does she prioritize, because she has a decent amount of setup here, specifically in mid and bot.
Yeah, I do think ever since the minor rework of Tom Kench quite a while ago, I would say at this point, where they swapped around the W and the ultimate to make that uh, step inside consume a little bit more cooldown reliant. That is a very large cooldown if they want to use that as a defensive tool into the Vi ultimate, although already you're trading an ultimate for an ultimate, so you're feeling pretty good. But it does mean that pre-level 6, the Senaton Kench lane, while being fairly difficult, it's fairly difficult for them to step away from a fight, they do have a lot of early game power just inside of that Tom Kench and what little damage Senna can pump out in the early game. So I think if DOGE don't respect that bottom lane 2v2 in the early game and they try and pick a fight without their Vi around, without some kind of a zero roam, it's a potential for that lane to skyrocket ahead because Tom Kench, despite being a support champion, despite being a tank, hurts a lot in the early game.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned that Vi, and I think Vi is also a really key component in DOGE's success here. You look at DZG's frontline, they are just stacked to the brim with tanks. And also, yeah, it does depend on what Hecarim goes, but that, Hecarim build could involve a little bit of tankiness here, as Hecarim has so much build variation. It's absolutely
Oh,
insane.
yeah.
But, Vi, with those denting blows, with that potential Black Cleaver Rush, could really hit hard if they get 1 to 2 kills under their belt early on. And that definitely has to be in DCG's mind here, right? Making sure that that armor penetration from Vi doesn't get unlocked to the fullest, making sure that those Black Cleaver procs, those denting blows, really can't, do the max amount of damage that they can do. So we are going to take a short break here while we wait for both teams to load in here for game one. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more coverage of DZG versus DOGE. See you soon.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here for game one of DZG Olympus versus Dorado Gaming Epsilon. We had a pretty exciting draft with some surprising pickups, like the fact that Casio for DZG made it through. We'll have to see who can take this all-important game one on the road to the finals of the APL.
Yup, and just looking at rune choices here from both teams, there are a few curious choices. That Glacial Augment coming here from Invictus Recon, as hold that thought, already a little bit of war of attrition going on between these two teams. The award dropped down at the blue buff here on that blue side. You know, we'll get some information as to where Sleeping Giant is going to start, which is really important considering Hecarim is one of the champions that does enjoy, you know, full clearing. And so finding out where he starts could give you a lot of avenues into sort of, you know, where to place that other ward, where to place it in that tri-bush potentially, or wherever he starts. Just knowing where he's pathing is really important, because he is going to just try and full clear, get that mythic item, maybe get 2 items, and then after that, he'll become the 1v9 machine that we all know and love.
Yeah, I do also want to point out the recent nerfs that came through to the sweeper means that Sleeping Giant won't be able to start on blue buff and just clear that ward out, deny that vision away from Dorado Gaming. He is going to have to wait until he paths up to it, as the sweeper now has the same cooldown as the regular yellow trinket, which means that you can't do the little cheesy strat of swapping it out and then bringing it back so you can have a little cooldown.
Yup, and we can see both junglers starting to starting on the bot side here. Hybrid carry starting on the bot side is a bit of a curious case, because Senna does provide a little bit of that you know, potential for setup, which Vi really likes here in the early game. Vi levels 1 through 5 definitely falls off a little bit because her Q is on a pretty long cooldown, so she can't, you know, just spam the Qs. If she misses one, that's basically the gank. So she has to sort of go to lanes that really provide that security to get ahead. And you know, going to the same end, going to that same crab as Hecarim when you have Cassiopeia as your opposing mid laner, definitely an interesting choice, because Cassiopeia, we can see bullying Tough Daddy here, able to get that prio here as he's trying to crash the waves, might even go for a cheater recall.
Yeah, this is the tier start on Cassio, so while it won't be as much damage as something like the Doran's Ring start, it will provide enough mana sustain that Cassio will just be hard carried by the poison plus the Twin Fangs in the early game, so it should be enough for her to be enough of a lane bully to secure at least one of the scuttles, if not both, for Hecarim, depending on which one he opts to go for in the early game, as we just see some trading on the bottom side. We're already starting to see the sustain potentially coming through for the DZG bottom lane, as the Senaton Kench, like we talked about in draft, the sustain heavy lane, they're going to be able to make their way through the early game poke that Varus and Renata will be able to pull through. But interesting to note, it is on hit Varus and it's Guardian Renata, so there isn't even actually that much early game poke for them to be putting out.
Yeah, and I also do kind of want to bring up an interesting rune choice, probably the most interesting of all of them. PTA here on the Vi, which is definitely an interesting reason thing. If they end up winning, if DOGE end up winning, I would probably like to ask Hybrid Carry about that, as it looks like he's going for a gank here. Won't get spotted out by the sapling, but he looks like he might contest this crab.
Yeah,
won't be able to find anything.
Sleeping Giant managing to find that one, and with Vi recalling on the top side here, it means that almost for certain Hecarim is just going to have both of these Scuttle Crabs, as we just see poor Invictus Recon. Taking the Glacial Augment means that he will be more useful to the team later in the game, but this laning phase is going to be very much a struggle for him against this Gwen, who I would say already is a fairly hard counter matchup into the tanks like Maokai.
Yeah, and it is also worth noting that Gwen, you know, if she, sorry, yeah, I'm confusing genders. If she is able to sort of get that, you know, early game off, make sure that she's safe in that early game, then it could spell disaster for the side of DZG later on, because Gwen at 2 to 3 items, as I mentioned in draft, is just an absolute monster, able to tear through armor like butter. And DZG, they have a whole lot of armor, as a little bit of trading here in the mid lane.
Topside as well. Invictus Recon getting that root in on to Big Bald and Thick, but doesn't manage to find any root under the tower, so I don't think one will be too pressed. But yeah, we're seeing the trades in the mid lane already. This is starting item versus starting item, and despite the, I would say, the better stats and the higher damage output of the Doran's Ring, with all of the changes that have come through for Azir, his early game power is a lot weaker now, as we see him taking the... Hang on a second. He's going to take the tower shot on. Getting the auto attack save. Gwen's going to put down that Howl Mist, throw down the Ghost for herself with a flash. Incredible smash! Invictus Recon with the first blood.
Yeah, big ball in the thick, not respecting the minions at the tower. He ended up taking aggro there, and those turret shots really sealed his fate there as Invictus was just able to pick up a quick kill. Yeah, definitely a bad start for the Gwen here as he's now forced to TP. Doesn't have a ghost. Looking ripe for the picking here for Sleeping Giant if he chooses to gank, and it looks like he's pathing up. So we could very well see a return kill here in the top lane.
Yeah, losing that ghost is such a big deal for Gwen because she is really reliant on that Hallowed Mist and the ghost to keep her safe from ganks. Like you mentioned, as we got a gank in the mid lane, your Shurima Shuffle is going to be there with the directed camera. Is going to troll us a little bit and take us away, but he is going to be picked up by Hybrid Care.
Yeah, it's like those shows in Star Wars these days where they just never actually show the person getting murked or killed. They just kind of pan away from it at the last second. So yeah, we won't see that kill onto Mobster Penguin here as DOG managed to pick up their first kill of the game, and crucially it's on Hybrid Carry, who we mentioned in the draft is really imperative when getting ahead, but hang on here.
The work is there for Big Bald and Thick. Sleepy Giant has to respect the amount of damage this point can put out. The Glacial Augment is now down. He will fall eventually. Pick up that second kill. The flash forward from Hybrid Carry will not find anything. It's 2 kills over to IG or Invictus Recon. Sorry. Too used to Invictus being IG. Invictus Recon 2-0 already in the early game.
Yeah, and most importantly, Hybrid Carry did have to burn that flash, tried to save the Gwen, but wasn't able to do so, and without this flash now loses a lot of her power in being able to go for those flash Qs or those Q flashes or any of those surprise ganks that you might want. If she is level 5, will get that cease and desist soon and won't be able to get off those long range flash R combos on the Vi. So Vi losing a little bit of her power here in the early game, crucially without that CDR to sort of back her up.
Yeah, and I know we were talking about it between, in that little break that we had, just with potentially what Hecarim will end up building, whether it's going to be the Radiant Virtue and Black Cleaver, or if it's going to be more focused on damage, and it looks like Sleeping Giant is fully in on the carry style, as I see the Tear and the Serena Dirk, which tells me that this is Man Immune plus the Duskblade.
Yeah, Sleeping Giant, he's revving the Nightcore, he's revving the Doanel playlist. It looks like he's going for the full 1v9 Conqueror playstyle that the Hecarim is known for here, which is what we said that Hecarim needed to sort of unlock here in this game, because Mobster Penguin on this Cassiopeia is really the only other form of damage that DZG have. They have a very crucial front-to-back comp that sort of supports their carries, and those that top support and ADC are sort of just there to be exactly that. They're just there to support the carries. So it is really important that this Hecarim gets that damage off, gets that damage build as crucially as possible. So yeah, DZG have a late game to look to, it looks like.
Yeah, and already we're seeing good warding from the bottom lane. As every time we pan over there, despite Tahm Kench being down 20 CS, it's kind of the expected result of the melee person being the farmer in that bottom lane. It means that, hang on, we've got the needlework up here on the top side. Conqueror's fully stacked, and just for Khan, just trying to avoid as much damage as possible. Some nice needlework from Big Bald and Thick, but this Maokai is just far too tanky. Despite the ulti being burned, it's just no kill able to come through.
Yeah, and actually a crucial microplay there from Invictus Recon was able to dodge out the fully stacked Q with that W, turning him immune for that little bit of time, and so really dodged a lot of damage there. I don't think Big Bald and Thick would have been able to kill him anyway, and as you highlighted, this Maokai is really fed, but a really good microplay there from Invictus Recon that I just wanted to highlight for a little bit.
Yeah, I do want to pull our attention back down to the bottom lane, though, as Senna, I think, is probably one of the best range supports right now, just in terms of what she can provide, despite the fact that she is kind of an AD carry, and bringing that extra physical damage to team comp isn't always what you want. She has some of the best skill in the game, again, with the versatile builds that we've been talking about a lot today, either going for the Umbral Glaive, despite its nerf, or even if you are running her with a tank in the bottom lane, you can do the Lethal Tempo plus Kraken Slayer and Infinity Edge, that side of the damage build. So I think she's not only really, really good right now in general, but with these pairings like Tahm Kench, like Cho'Gath, she can bring so much to a team, it feels impossible to shut her down.
Yeah, and it looks like,
Corruption are going to be cleansed away. Siding Game has to run away from that hostile takeover, though, as now it's just Tahm Kench in the 1 versus 2. He's going to get that eat off, and he bears a little bit closer. The exhaust comes through. Nice cleanse from the Drunk, but it's not going to be enough. J. Core is going to find the kill him out. We got it right in the top side. Looking for the 5. They'll find it. The Abyssal Die has has to be flashed away from by the Orion, and now Hybrid Carry looking to get in, looking to punish Poseidon Gabe. That root is going to go wide, waiting for that Viking to be charged up. A nice slow, nice flash away from J Core. Core is not going to let that one hit. Now the DZG bot lane will get away scot-free as it's DZG winning across the map.
Yeah, crucial solo kill there from Invictus Recom, really putting him ahead here as he's going to be able to crash the wave here in top lane. And Big Ball and Thick, he doesn't have that TP, so he's going to miss quite a few waves here. It looks like he's just going to miss this wave. And yeah, that's gold down the drain as it looks like DOGE looking to respond with a dragon play here as we can see the Vi in the bot lane here grouping up, looking to take this Ocean Dragon. And yeah, Ocean Dragon, while good, while it's nice to have that first dragon, I would say Ocean Dragon is arguably one of the weaker dragons in the early game. As hang on, Tough.
Not gonna find it smart, Tough Daddy. I don't remember the exact interaction, but that Cassiopeia ground might stop the dash in its tracks if you're going over it. So I don't think Tough Daddy managed to find the full value out of that one.
Yeah, some nice, fancy footwork by Mobster Pang. Is it appropriate to call it fancy footwork when she doesn't actually have, feet? She's just a snake. She has a tail. What do we call that?
I think you don't want to call it fancy tail work. That has some other implications. We'll stick with fancy footwork for now, as Invictus Recon, we see him cleaning up this wave. And despite the 3-0 lead that he has, it is still Gwen versus a tank matchup, so you can see that he is down 15 CS up there. But with the Abyssal Mask already in inventory, it's going to be so difficult for this Gwen to actually find any sort of winning trade against this Maokai.
Yeah, Gwen's set really far behind here as, yeah, like you said, he already has that Abyssal Mask, already has that stopwatch, has those boots, and that Doran Shield. So he has a lot of sustain here in the lane, even though he's had this, Doran Shield for basically almost 12 minutes. The sustain from Maokai, I think, is what's really been getting to Big Bald and Thick, as he's trying to get those trades, trying to get those engages, and he's been punished for it every single time he's just slightly overstepped. So really well played by Invictus Recon for, playing that playing that slowly, playing that safe, and, just capitalizing off the mistakes of this Gwen.
Yeah, and as soon as we start talking nice about him, we pan up the top lane and we watch him miss that cannon. And the true caster curse. It's not about, the deaths that you give over shutdown gold. Missing a cannon is the real big deal. Hang on, Big Balls and Thick. Don't think you want that trade. Again, despite the CS difference, this Maokai is so strong right now. We did also talk about during the raid potentially what this Vi would end up building, as we do see Hybrid Carry has that completed Black Cleaver in inventory with that first early kill. But I had mentioned a little while ago that with the double AP solo laners, this Black Cleaver loses a lot of its value.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the Black Cleaver really is just there to try and provide Sleeping Giant with a little... I'm not Sleeping Giant, but trying to provide the Drunk with a little bit of, leeway as...
Going in right now. He's going to pop that ulti, get that needlework, and he's starting to do a lot of damage, but a nice sidestep for Invictus Recon is going to keep the Gwen away. Tosses out that third ulti just for a little bit of extra healing, and Invictus Recon playing this laning phase beautifully well.
Yeah, Big Bald and Thick really trying to, punish Invictus Recon for walking up, but you can't do anything about the tree now that he's super fed. Yeah, just not being able to cut through his bark, and it looks like Invictus Recon is setting himself up for a really nasty late game. We all know how nasty Maokai's survivability and how nasty his ability to, participate in those extended fights can be when he's ahead.
Yeah, most of the Maokai that we've been seeing recently in pro play and throughout most of the meta recently has been the damage-focused Maokai with that demonic embrace, and maybe sometimes even a first strike to try and just get as much damage value as possible, as the Chains of Corruption are going to be blown in the bottom lane. J-Core Core is the target, the cease and desist as well, just trying to burst down this Tom Kench as much as possible, and they will finally break through him. The Drunk is going to finally find their first kill in this game.
Yeah, congrats to the Drunk there, finding his first kill of the game here on this Varus, and that's crucial because, like we said earlier, Hybrid Carry is really looking to build that Black Cleaver in hopes that his ADC can be ahead. And you were talking about the variations of the Varus build earlier, and it looks like he is going to opt for that shield bow, sort of, getting that survivability off, making sure he can't be one-shot, but more crucially, I think he is looking to go for sort of that, regular, niche attack damage build for the Varus instead of something like the lethality build with the Manamune, with the Tear of the Goddess. He is just opting to hit like an ADC usually would.
Yeah, it's not an AP Varus, it is not a Comet Poke Varus. This is the standard lethal tempo on hit Varus, which means that Invictus Recon will actually have a decently difficult time in that mid and late game, starting to tank up the face of this Varus as Orion pushing aggressively in the bottom lane, just trying to make sure this wave will fully hit the tower, make sure it crashes and you can get your full recall off. Yeah, I think this is the right call for the Drunk, as it's not the most physical damage focused build. It is the tank shredding build, and you have a Tahm Kench and a Maokai to make your way through. There could have been a Hecarim too also, but with him going this more damage focused build, he's going to be much less of a problem for the backliners to deal with in terms of damage. But yeah, Varus has to be the one really working their way through the tanks, as they really want Gwen to be sitting on top of the Cassio, on top of the Senna, dealing as much damage to these squishies as possible. So I think it's the proper choice from the Drunk here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I agree with the Drunk's style of build here, as it is going to provide a lot of necessary tank shredding against DZG, and it is really going to provide a lot of survivability against the more bursty members of them as well. You know, Hecarim getting that Dirk, getting that man immune here 15 minutes here into the game. So yeah, it looks like he's definitely going for that sort of one-shot build, as a little bit of interference here, but
One shot though! He'll find a bottom lane of DZG! Poseidon Game is going to be able to escape somehow, just barely, but he will finally get picked up by Tough Daddy. Is now Sleeping Giant doesn't want to let him go. He's over the wall. He's bursting down. This is Aegis now. Monster Penguin pushing away in a 1 versus 4 situation. Will get picked up by Hybrid Carry. Now Sleeping Giant potentially in trouble. Has to dash away as fast as he can, and then he flies forward. The Orion puts out his hand, says, "Let's want to shake his hand." Shut down Gold over to Big Bold and Thick, and it's a huge winning fight for Dorado Gaming.
Actually, such a crucial fight here for DOGE, as they managed to pick off most of the members of DZG here. And also, Big Bald and Thick coming from the top lane, popping that Ghost, looking for the picks, as it is actually incredible that Hybrid Carry managed to pick up so many kills here in that exchange. 3-0 and 2 here on the Vi. This Vi is looking really scary for the side of DZG, as she does have that Black Cleaver in inventory, and very well could also be going for something like the Divine Sunder that the Vi is known for. So a lot of tank shredding, combine that with the Gwen, and these tanks, they're gonna melt like butter later on in the game.
Yeah, either Divine Sunder or potentially Radiant Virtue. We just have the Kindle Gem that we're working that prediction off of right now. But yeah, a bit of a misstep from DZG, I think, in that fight. The Dragon was already gone. I think the fact that the bottom lane even stepped up a little bit more aggressively there. They had the blue trinket in the pit. They saw that the Dragon was going down. Sleeping Giant was still too far away to make that contest happen. It just felt a bit over-aggressive from DZG. And while it will be hard punished for them by Dorado, so now they have to start working themselves back into this game, despite the fact that they had such a massive gold lead. Now hang on, great in the bottom side. Monster Penguin is
friend, you do not win this.
Gaze, Big Bald and Thick trying to get the trade, trying to get close, but it is not close enough. Monster Penguin with the solo kill bottom side.
Yeah, Mobster Penguin, he does have that Rod of Ages here in inventory, really giving him a lot of leeway to, go on those extended fights. And speaking of fights, they might not be over.
Oh, Sleeping Giant wants in. The hostile takeover will not find the Hacker, but now he's 1v4 in the backside. He's got the Tahm Kench behind him. Drunk is going to pick that one up. Sleeping Giant just stepping way too far forward as Invictus Rakan now trying to make the rest of the fight happen, but there's just no follow-up to be had. That's the issue with Hector right there. You go too far, Tahm Kench cannot save you.
Yeah, that ultimate from the Renata really zoned off the entire team of DZG, and they were not able to reinforce Sleeping Giant on that engage. Really good ultimate there from the Orion to just make sure that Hecarim was there 1v4. And yeah, he just gets picked off instantly, as, like we said, this is the full damage Hecarim. He doesn't have that tankiness. That W, that ultimate doesn't get reinforced by something like the Radiant Virtue heal. He's going in, he's committing, and he committed wrong, as yeah, he gets picked off there. The crucial pick for DOGE ended up being really good for them, as they look like they're going to transition that pick into a Herald, but it looks like DZG aren't done yet. It looks like they might try and contest.
Deja vu, I feel like I've been in this place before. Invictus Rakan is here, but now a couple of key ultimates not available for DZD to try and make this contest happen, as Dorado are going to pick up that Herald, and the Relics is just going to guarantee that disengage for them. DZG not finding anything on the map so far. Last 10 minutes have been all Dorado, all the way through.
Yeah, Dorado have been playing the map excellently here. Hybrid Carry has really managed to pick off you know, the favorite that we were talking here as Sleeping Giant just hasn't been able to, you know, get anything meaningful off here in this game. Not a single Dragon, not a single Herald. He managed to pick up 1 kill, but it looks like it might only get worse for him as you look at the scaling of Dorado here, and they just scaled to Oblivion. Even though this Gwen is 1 in 4, once she manages to pick up what looks like a Gnasher's Tooth, as hang on.
Stone Gaze again, but a nice Emperor's Divine is going to save the Asir with a little bit of BM from Tough Daddy, as he knows he's safe after the Divide comes through.
Yeah, Tough Daddy managing to escape the claws, or rather the what do I say? The tail of Mobster Penguin here? Yeah, of Mobster Penguin here as, yeah, Mobster's just looking for kill after kill, trying to get these picks off, and he managed to get one on Big Bald and Thick a few minutes ago, but yeah, he won't be able to pick up one up on Tough Daddy, and that'll be the ultimate burn from both mid laners, so that Emperor's Divide won't be up for this Dragon fight here, as that'll be a Mountain Dragon here 30 seconds into the game, and this could be Soul Point for DOGE.
Yeah, this is the kind of fight where DZG really has to contest, because not only do they want to deny the Mountain Soul, obviously, away from Dorado, but the Mountain Dragons are going to have such good value for every single member of this DZG team. As hang on, the Orion may be caught out, but Shirelius is just going to be enough to save him and get him away from those menacing fangs from Cassiopeia. But burning the Shirelius and that 5 on themselves means that it's not available for quite a long time. That cooldown very hefty in the early game, and that Shirelius, a 90-second cooldown. There was such a core part of how they were able to engage in distance. Hang on, J-Core Core has to flash over the wall, doesn't have the team behind him, as Sleeping Giant on the top side of the fight is looking for the burst onto the Drunk. He's gonna burn.
The Drunk.
Yeah, there's the damage, it comes through. There's the Dustblade Probe, but assist is starting there, and Sleeping Giant is staying alive. J-Core Core is there with the save. The massive shield from that Tom Kench ulti. It is a clean ace for DZG. They found their fight. They'll find the Dragon as well.
The Drunk was caught out there, forcing the Orion to use that bailout too early, and it ended up not mattering as Sleeping Giant just able to go in against the entire team of DOGE here, as it looks like they're going to transition that Ace into a Baron, 22-minute Baron here, and it looks like Sleeping Giant just staying here in that bot lane. They're going to get both a Baron and a Dragon here. Huge pickup for the side of DZG, as it looks like that might be the fight to propel them in the lead here.
Yeah, this is such a massive turnaround for DZG. When I saw J-Core Core force a flash over the back half of that wall, I was a little concerned, but Sleeping Giant landing a massive ultimate, taking the Drunk down to that revive stage from the Renata W, and the hostile takeover just not finding any value in that fight meant that Orion, who I think has been silently kind of the carry for these team fights for DOGE, wasn't able to find any value.
Yeah, the Renata and the Drunk were just picked off instantly here in that fight, and there wasn't much the top side could do, as the burst from Hecarim was just too much, and that Duskblade really coming in handy here. It doesn't look like Hybrid Carry was able to, you know, get a target off, and the moment he did get out of his invisibility, he was just straight up eaten by J-Core with that Tom Kench ultimate coming in really handy, as we have a little bit of, you know, just kind of both teams relaxing, looking to, you know, recoup from that. DOGE trying to get what they can. I would expect them to try and get a little bit of vision, as it looks like Big Bald and Thick is just going to be on this top side. This Gwen really trying its best to scale up, but it's 1 in 5 set really far behind here. But I feel like with Gwen, you never really know just how strong they can be until they actually hit, you know, that 2-item, 3-item spike, as Hybrid Carry might be caught out here.
2-level difference. Sleeping Giant really happy to take the straight, is going to force Hybrid Carry over the wall. But yeah, speaking of that level difference, I just want to look at the mid and jungle of DOGE and of DZG, as the level difference between the two of them. Hybrid Carry down 2 levels. Tough Daddy just recently deeming that 14, only down a level now, but Monster Penguin got that free level up off the Roa, as the Chains of Corruption don't find anything, as we've got also Invictus Rakan just happily pushing in the bottom side, as Big Bald and Thick is going to be answering top lane. The Trick Tower is 1 for 1, but I feel like with the Baron buff, Maokai, despite being Maokai, is probably going to win this trade.
Yeah, and we can see Sleeping Giant. He's looking for a potential flank here. He does have the Onslaught of Shadows.
The cease and desist. They're looking for the engage, but the Tom Kench ultimate, this has too much value. The Stone Gaze from Cassiopeia won't find anything. Now Big Bald and Thick has that ulti on, maybe looking to continue the fight. But yeah, there's just no follow-up from either team. Now that the engage tools have been burned, Sleeping Giant just waiting for his chance to get into that back line. But with the Azir turret, I don't think either team is going to look for an engage here.
Yeah, I think both teams, I think DZG specifically are just going to look up to push in this wave and maybe get some vision here on the top jungle of DOGE here, as it doesn't look like they have a lot. Obviously, there's that control ward in the bush to the left, and so yeah, we can see Sleeping Giant maybe looking for it, but no, they might actually be looking for an engage. They're pushing.
Yeah, this Miasma is putting in so much work. It's so difficult for the rest of the DOGE to get into this fight. The Miasma does such a good job of denying both the Azir and the Vi their engage tools. So it's so difficult to get away from this siege unless you have that flank. DOGE, unless they want to lose this tower, they need to make something happen.
Yeah, and Observer, can we real quick get a Senna soul counter here for the Observers, as I actually want to see how much range we have for you. 80? Yeah, that's quite a lot of souls. Yeah, this Senna Poseidon really starting to just get up in soul counter here, as that range is just going to continue to increase. So DOGE, they need to look for potentially the next dragon here. If they don't get the next dragon, it's going to be really hard for them to come back here in this game, as it looks like DOGE, you go.
As a certified Senna enjoyer and Senna aficionado recently, getting 80 souls for 20 minutes is generally what you would consider very fast. 80 souls around 25, I would say, is near normal, if not a little bit slow. But even then, just that 80 extra range and the fact that you have, I believe it is about 60 crit, maybe 40, enough to activate your Infinity Edge at the very least. So Senna, yeah, around 40% critical strike chance from that 80 souls, which means that as soon as you buy that Infinity Edge, you'll hit 60 crit, you'll be fully active on it, and Senna's going to start pumping out a lot of damage.
Yeah, the Senna's starting to deal a lot of damage as it is. So with that Infinity Edge in tow, that could be really dangerous, as it looks like she has all the components. So I wouldn't imagine she has much gold left. And yeah, there it is. The Infinity Edge bought here for this crucial fight for DZG, as the dragon will be spawning here in 40 seconds. DOGE here, if they lose this dragon, this could very well be the game. But it looks like DZG have come prepared. You know, they recalled, they have their item sets. This Cassiopeia has the 3 items, has that, you know, Cosmic Drive, has 10 stacks on that ROA. This Hecarim has 3 items, and those upgraded boots, those Lucidity boots, really going to start coming in handy, as that CDR is really what Hecarim wants, plus that red buff. So it really looks like DZG's fight to win, as yeah, it looks like DOGE are just going to give it up and push top here. I expect this is probably what they want to continue to do. They know they can't fight DZG straight up anymore. They know that time has passed, so they're just going to opt to play for side lane, it looks like. But in the meantime, it looks like they're... because...
It's a really smart decision to make, because you can't take this fight against DZG. You know how strong they are right now. You see the 3-item power spike, like you talked about, for Cassio and for this Hecarim. It's so difficult to try and make an engage happen, and if you lose the fight, that's loss of Baron control, and that's loss of probably the Baron as well, with how close it is to spawning. So DOGE really need to save their resources and try and make the fight happen around the Baron. So instead of just, you know, standing around the objective, looking at DZGE while they take it, they opt to make something happen on the top side. They give themselves a little bit more control around that objective. I think it's absolutely the correct decision to make.
Yeah, we can see the Chains of Corruption.
And J-Corp 4 potentially caught out, the target of the Dorado offensive, but it's Tom Kench with an Iceborne Gauntlet. I don't know how you're going to do damage to him.
Yeah, Tom Kench is just really strong here. Has that Iceborne Gauntlet, has those Merc Treads, so that Chains of Corruption wasn't able to get its full duration off, as that Tenacity really managed to pull through and get him out of that sticky situation, in which case maybe someone like Hybrid Carry could have followed up with something like a Q to maybe seal J-Core's fate, as he was, you know, stuck in that Chains of Corruption, and, you know, that W was canceled, so he had nowhere to go. But the Baron's start up for DZG, but DOGE are here, but I don't know if you can fight them straight up, guys.
Yeah, J-Corp is stuck on the wrong side of the wall, though. He's 1v1ing Big Wall and Thick, has to flash over the wall to get away from this Gwen, and that's going to reduce the frontline power of DZG significantly. But they're going to be forced to walk away from this Baron. I think that's actually a pretty big win for Dorado Gaming here. They're buying themselves some extra time to scale and give their Varus more time to get these important items in inventories. Hang on. Invictus for Khan. He's going to get engaged on the Lost to Penguin. He's behind him. Hybrid Carry, potentially looking for that Vault Breaker. Not going to find anything, so they will just be able to walk away. But yeah, we're seeing Dorado slowly start to manage some control back for themselves in this game.
Yeah, they're just looking to push out this mid wave. They have that Azir turret here in tow, and they could very well try and threaten the Baron, maybe bait a Baron fight here on DZG. But like we said, and I don't think anything has changed, DZG straight up are a better, a better team when it comes to fighting. They just have more tools at their disposal for those longer fights. Things like Hecarim, things like Cassio, things like the Senna now, who has so much crit in her inventory, can just fight forever. And it looks like that turret is just going to go down. So DOGE, if they want to win this game, really need to find other ways of winning it. We can see that Big Bald and Thick is here on this top lane, looking to continue that split push, looking to continue that sort of side lane play. And I think that's the correct call from DOGE, because they just know that there's no point here in the game where they can fight 5v5 for these objectives.
Yeah, I'm obviously not being native to the APL here, so I am a bit of a stranger to these areas. Just hang on, Sleeping Giant is going to look to get onto Big Bald and Thick, but I think this is just going to force the Gwen ulti and the Ghost, so she will just be forced to walk away. She didn't even have the Ghost, actually. She was just dashing that fast. I do kind of want to pull a question mark on the Drunk's item choices here, as we see he's hanging on to that Zeal as that third item, but with all of the front line that this Varus is going to have to get through, I think something like a Blade of the Ruined King might have had a bit more value for him.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think Blade of the Ruined King, though, for a lot of ADCs is sort of a first item you buy. It's not really something you build second. And so I can see where maybe the Drunk is coming from when it comes to building that, as Poseidon is just going to drop that ultimate for maybe the Vision, I guess, because I'm pretty sure Senna ultimate throughout the entire con gives you new Vision.
It does provide Vision in the line, but I'm going to chalk that one up to a bit of fat fingers. We're gonna say that was just a misclick. It
looked cool. It looked cool, and that's the most important thing. I think Senna's ultimate is probably one of the most, disappointing ultimates in the game, because the animation, for all it's worth, looks awesome, and you expect the laser to deal like 5 gajillion damage, but it really doesn't deal a lot of damage. Senna's more of an auto attacker, but the abilities, god damn it, they look so cool.
Yeah, especially on that ultimate high nearing scan, the yeehaw as she just fires off the. It's so cool. Probably my favorite Senna skin. As we see now, DOGE are going to start to just get themselves vision back around that Baron buff. We do have the Mountain Dragon spawning in just under a minute, and despite the nerfs to the individual dragon stats themselves, I think Mountain Dragon got nerfed from 9% to, I think, 7.5% armor and magic resist individually. So it's going to provide a little bit less value overall, but it's still 14% armor and magic resist for each stack. And on a champion like Maokai or like this Tahm Kench, you're going to start to struggle to do any damage to them.
Yup, and we can see the dragon spawning here in just under 30 seconds. Both teams look like they want to get vision of it. DOGE managed to get a few crucial wards over the terrain to, light up that bot side jungle of DZG, so they'll know where they are, but it doesn't look like DZG care. They're just going through the lane smartly, and they could very well go for a river fight. They have the Maokai R, which is really good in river.
Yeah, Monster Penguin is going to fight Tough Daddy out on the bottom side here, going to force him to dash over the wall. But that's the Chains of Corruption. That's a really important bit of CC for Dorado Gaming here if they want to try and make some kind of engage happen. Right now, it's all on Tough Daddy. Try and find some big shuffle. We've got the fight going to Maya. It's huge, a lot of damage. There's that Maokai ultimate burning through the team. The Hacker multi is huge. He's going to find a floor and finger. Sleeping Giant is going to leapfrog off the map. Tough Daddy is going to find a massive shuffle, but there's just no damage to follow up. It's hybrid carry. I thought it was one sub. It's big bald and thick. Trying to make something happen, but Dorado cannot find a single kill. DZG with a clean ace.
Dorado were just running away throughout that entire fight, trying to recoup. They were running down the river, but my friend, you cannot run from that Maokai R. It just looks like DZG were picking off people trying to run, and it doesn't even look like they give a shit about the dragon. They're going straight for the base. They want game one.
Yeah, I think with the respawn timers, at the very least, they'll find themselves an inhibitor. They might be able to take a Nexus Tower or two. We see the Drunk is up in 5 seconds, and Orion is going to be close.
Oh, they're going for it.
They're going for it. They're looking for this first Nexus Tower. It will fall. The Orion now respawn. Drunk finally respawned as well, but Monster Penguin does not want to let them play the video game. Cassiopeia is scaled, and she is a menace as DZG are going to focus down the Nexus, and they'll take game one.
Yup, a clean game one there from DZG. A little bit of struggle there in the early game, but mid and late game was just all theirs. They managed to pick it up cleanly with a few one fights. It just looked like the game was theirs to win, and they did it, and they played every fight really well. They played the map really well. They played around Vision very well, and yeah, just a clean game from them from basically middle to finish.
Yeah, it looked a little shaky there, I would say, around the mid-game. Dorado Gaming did an excellent job of grabbing some control in that mid-game, fighting around their ultimates really well. I think that one fight, in particular, around the early Rift Herald, where Orion had an excellent hostile takeover and Hybrid Carry was able to grab the Rift out for them, ended up being really huge. But it just didn't end up mattering over the course of the rest of the game, as DZG had the better scaling, had, I would say, was a better draft, and managed to pick up a very clean game one.
Yeah, and I mean specifically the bot lane there of DZG really managed to buy their time there in that game, really managed to, sort of suck it up. Playing Senna Tahm Kench is not the most exciting lane in lane phase. And so when that lane phase broke, I bet they were like, oh my God, thank God. And they really managed to play around their team nicely. Sleeping Giant was basically under no threat of dying after that sort of 1v4 stint that he ended up dying to. Yeah, after that, he managed to become the 1v9 Hecarim player. And yeah, more of that, and I think DZG could certainly look to 3-0 this series.
Yeah, they looked excellent in game one, and we're going to take a short break while we wait for the draft to be set up for game two of DZG versus Dorado Gaming Epsilon. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for the APL semifinals.
This city never sleeps, chemically brought down on its knees. With every breath that I breathe, clenched fists and gritting teeth. Tonight the energy flowing in me is waiting for relief. Thunder beneath my feet, I sight you on my until the dawn, the darkness falls, and I lose control. I feel it in my bones, a spark to lead us through the shadows. Can I fight the way before me? Coursing through my soul, a road to guide us through the sorrow. Can I calm this storm inside me? This electricity, a part of me that's under pressure. Charged up, my fuse igniting a sight you wanna see. I'm outside, pointing to the sky, gonna make the earth shake 'cause you can't contain me. Voltage burst through the black of my eyes, put my finger on the trigger and I'll shock you, baby. Against the odds, heading to until the dawn, the darkness falls, and I lose control. I feel it in my bones, a spark to lead us through the shadows. Can I fight the way before me? Coursing through my soul, a road to guide us through the sorrow. Can I calm this storm inside me? I feel it in my bones, a spark to lead us through the shadows. Can I fight the way before me? Coursing through my soul, a road to guide us through the sorrow. Can I calm this storm inside me? I feel it in my bones, a spark to lead us through the shadows. Can I fight the way before me? Coursing through my soul, a road to guide us through the sorrow. Can I calm this storm inside me? This storm inside me. Don't try to make yourself remember, darling. Don't look for me, I'm just a story you've been told. let's pretend a little longer. 'Cause when we're gone, everything goes on. You were staring at the window, and I said, I wanna take you to the sea. And when I'm better, we'll do everything. I gotta stop making promises I can't keep. But if I was gone tomorrow, won't the waves crash on? Is it selfish that I'm happy as we pass the setting sun? Someday I'll be overcast, but you won't have to cry. 'Cause we'll do the grieving while I'm by your side. I said, don't try to make yourself remember. Darling, don't look for me, I'm just a story you've been told. So let's pretend a little longer. 'Cause when we're gone, everything goes on. And I'm so scared of getting used to this. All the vines that keep you tethered in your room. Well, someday both of us are leaving here, but for now I'll just bring this sea to you. Oh, will you meet me in the daylight like we did before? Then I felt you on my shoulder, and you weren't suffering anymore. You said, I'm sorry that you worry.
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's coverage of the APL semifinals. After a stunning win in Game 1, DZG have taken us up in this series 1-0 over Dorado Gaming Epsilon. I'm still What Too Pretty, that's still Quacks, and we're here for the draft for Game 2 as soon as the teams are ready to go.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're DZG, you definitely have to be looking about what you want to do to, sort of change your draft, because that early game from them, as we said, it wasn't the best. So I think that they might be looking to, maybe ban away some of those, prominent picks that really set them behind in the early game. Maybe we can see something like a Vi ban. We might see something like a Maokai ban. Obviously, Invictus Recon was, wait, no, Invictus Recon was the one who played the Maokai, right?
Yes, he was
Yeah.
insane
Yes.
on the Maokai. Getting that solo
Yeah.
kill in the top side versus the Gwen was a pretty big deal, I think. Getting that Gwen behind in the top side, it managed to really set the pace for the rest of DZG across the map. And for Dorado Gaming, I think there's a bit of concern because you had hard focused that jungle pool in Game 1. You spent 4 out of your 5 bans making sure that Sleeping Giant would be put down. But he still managed to find a comfortable pick for himself and find that Hecarim and managed to make the win happen for DZG.
Yeah, I mean, DZG, they are looking pretty comfortable here. They had a really good, mid and late game. So I'm hoping that they're looking to propel sort of that style, playing around Sleeping Giant, playing around sort of that flexibility that he can provide both in champion pool and in style. As we can see the bans coming out here, DOGE opting to ban away basically the same thing that they banned away last time, minus that Cassiopeia, which they don't look like they want to deal with again, as Mobster Penguin on that Cassiopeia was an absolute menace.
Yeah, that does mean the Seraphine is left up, though, and DZG, I know, just as an org in general across all of the teams, absolutely adore flexing this pick across the mid, the bot, and the support. So I wouldn't be shocked to see this Seraphine picked up first rotation, as Dorado Gaming are going to grab themselves that Jinx, snap pick that first pick.
Yeah, and like you said, yeah, the DZG special of the Seraphine being insta-locked there for them, as Seraphine, a very good champion, able to be flexed in 3 different positions, probably going to be either mid or support, as Seraphine ADC, while it does still exist, definitely has fallen off a little bit in popularity, as we will see the Maokai follow up by DZG, and last game we did see that Maokai top, so maybe we'll see a repeat of that, as yeah, I mean, Invictus Recon looked ridiculously comfortable on that champion, so could be jungle or top lane.
Yeah, if I'm going to continue to predict this draft for DZG, I think Dorado Gaming, they'll probably grab this Thresh here. It is one of Jinx's best pairings, keeps her safe in the mid and late game, and provides a ton of engage and heal potential, as well as a probably go back to that Vi. I don't think Hybrid Carry looked bad on it. For Dorado, just needed to make something happen a little bit more in the early game. Although maybe the Olaf that was banned away last time, I think DZG, they might just snap lock in the Senna here and keep that flexibility for the Seraphine, but just have that Senna Seraphine combo in the bottom lane if they really want.
Yeah, and I think that the Thresh Jinx combo for the side of DOGE is definitely one that where they're looking to, you know, kill the enemy laners, obviously. I think Jinx in this game really needs to get ahead early on, or else she's going to sort of fall behind, because there are champions on this team where she just is not able to damage them a lot. The Maokai, if it gets one, you know, root on the W, the Jinx is probably dead. If the Seraphine gets one root, it's probably dead. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a cleanse coming out here for the Jinx, but Thresh Jinx is definitely a very, you know, aggressive lane. So I would be looking around bot lane a lot, both with the jungle and just in general, a lot of kills probably going in the way of lane.
Yeah, and it serves me great for trying to predict something, as the Rakan is actually locked in for DZG. J Core is going to be hitting that one up, which means the Seraphine will either be bottom lane with the Rakan or in the mid lane alone. So we'll have to see where they end up throwing that one, as the second ban phase is going to start to come through. The Wukong now taken away by DZG, as it was banned against them last time, and Dorado Gaming do not want to deal with that Hackroom again. They're going to take that one out.
Yeah, Hackroom being banned away from Sleeping Giant. I'm a little bit surprised that DZG didn't opt to pick that in the first phase of bans. Hackroom does have a decent amount of champions that he can play well into, and so I would have expected that with it not being banned in the first phase to be picked up, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe DZG want a little bit more security for Sleeping Giant, as he is, you know, a very carry style type jungler. So as you can see, DOGE, you know, respecting that carry play style, making sure that that Kindred is not available for bans in the way of Sleeping Giant. As DZG, I'm curious to see what they are going to put Sleeping Giant on. Maybe something like the Viego, I would imagine, could be picked up, as not sure what that's going to be. Yup, that will be the Viego here. It was your turn to predict what DZG would pick up. Now it's my turn to predict, as, yeah, the Viego locked in here for Sleeping Giant. This is actually not the best Viego game, as you look at the available picks here for DOGE, and there isn't a lot of mobility. That's where Viego really thrives, you know, being able to get those resets off of the Heartbreaker and use the mobility of the champions to get closer to, you know, priority targets and, you know, just smash down on them. And you look at DOGE, they don't have a ton of mobility. Sure, they have the Lantern and the Xin Zhao locked in here for DODG to maybe provide some mobility here for this Viego, and a very interesting matchup looks like it's forming here for both junglers.
Yeah, the Xin Zhao is kind of an interesting pick. It does mean that that Olaf will be headed up towards the top side, as we get kind of expected. It will be the matchup versus this Maokai. As we wait for this last pickup, DOGE, I say this every time Jinx is picked up in a competitive team, but when you pick up Jinx, you really have to draft around her and play for her. And outside of this Thresh, DOG has no peel for this Jinx. You have Ahri, Xin Zhao, Olaf, who all want to be diving headfirst into the enemy backline, trying to make whatever AD carry DZG lock in have a miserable time. But it means that Maokai, Rakan, and Viego are just going to be running a train on this Jinx, because poor Thresh will not be able to peel all of them.
Yeah, and speaking of a horrible time, I mean, look at this top lane matchup. I really want to praise Invictus Rakan for that, you know, Maokai in the last game, but this is Olaf versus Maokai. This is never ever a fun lane for Maokai, as once Olaf hits 6, you basically have a hard time playing in the same lane as him, as he just negates all your CC. He can go in on you. You can't slow him. You can't stun him. You can't root him. And you don't have any escapes because you're a tank champion. And he just completely demolishes you. So I would expect Big, Bald, and Thick to get a little bit of revenge here in game 2, as, yeah, he was really struggling against Invictus Rakan in that game 1 as Gwen.
Yeah, there is the Olaf meme of level 1, he takes his Q, and if he hits one of them, you do just have to flash or die.
Yep.
It kind of just is how the lady phase goes versus Olaf, but Maokai, I think, is probably one of the champions who can peel away from him, especially if he does have that Glacial Augment, at the very least pre-6, knock that Olaf away, activate the Glacial, make it so he can't get any other follow-up on you. So maybe this is another lane where instead of winning on the top side as Invictus Rakan, you're kind of just disabling the Olaf in the early game, making it so it's going to be more difficult for him to make something happen, as DZG had actually ended up locking in that Vigar as the bottom lane pick here, which means they're going to be very lacking in terms of physical damage outside of the Viego, but they're going to have a hell of a lot of crowd control between Maokai, Seraphine, and that Vigar.
Yeah, and I mean, Sleeping Giant being the only resource of ADC, of AD damage, I would imagine that both Seraphine and Vigar are really looking to, you know, sort of pull the weight there and try to get him ahead, similar to what they did in the last game. But you were saying that Vigar was ADC and Seraphine might be mid. I'm not sure that's necessarily set in stone, as both of these champions can go in both of those positions. Seraphine can go ADC, Seraphine can go mid. And you know, they're both two flexible champions, so we're gonna have to wait up until the very end for both teams
Hang on,
to,
hear
you
me
know,
out.
see what that's going to be finalized. Okay, I'll hear
Hear
you
me
out.
out. Vigar, Seraphine, bottom lane, full AP recon mid.
I agree. I mean, hey, C9 has done crazier things. They did that Ivern mid thing one time. They've done Soraka mid. We've seen crazier things literally in LCS. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a Rakan mid could come through. As I mean, I just had a 1v1 with Rakan. He does quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, his AP ceilings aren't bad. I don't expect to see him actually go in that mid lane. That's a little bit probably too much. But Rakan, I think, recently has been pretty favored in terms of buffs and in terms of play overall. We see him paired up with Xayah very often, and the recent buffs to his Q, making it an actual ability in the early game, having a sizable heal on it, is going to mean the sustain in this bottom lane, if no matter whether it's Seraphine or Vigar who goes with it, is going to end up being a lot more difficult for this Jinx Thresh to try and play through.
Yep, and it looks like that Vigar mid will be locked in. So yeah, you were right. This is going to be a Seraphine ADC. Rakan, Seraphine bot lane, definitely looking to play, you know, sort of back behind their turret. Make sure that this Jinx and Thresh can't bully them out. I would expect to see maybe if DOGE want, they could look for a lot of dives. Xin Zhao obviously has a decent amount of dive potential with things like that knockup if he times it right. And, you know, things like that lantern, which are able to just sort of get you out of there as soon as possible. So could see a little bit of dives here on the bot lane, even though DZG do have a lot of peel in that bot lane. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some action under the turret.
Yeah, I think the name of the game is wave clear and safety for this DZ bottom lane. Again, with Seraphine Rakan, you have a lot of crowd control, obviously, but Seraphine also, when she's building AP, has that damage in inventory. She's able to do a lot of wave clear and actually a lot of good amount of poke, which is going to make it difficult for Thresh to try and play aggressive in this early game, despite being what I would say is a very favorable matchup into the Rakan in terms of laning phase, as Flay just kind of denies everything that he wants to do as long as the Thresh has fast fingers.
Yeah, and I mean, I would expect Hybrid Carry to have sort of a difficult time getting onto the backline targets there, even if he does manage to land the W on things like a Viego, like a Vigar, maybe even like a Seraphine. As soon as he goes in, he is probably just going to get hit with an avalanche of crowd control and sustain, because DZG has a lot of both of those things. Seraphine, Maokai, Rakan are three champions that have so much, you know, backline safety, and they also have just a lot of sustain. So those extended fights, DOGE are going to have to be really scared of them, as really it does kind of fall on this Olaf with that Ragnarok to be the sort of champion that can just tear through them and sort of distract them while the rest of the team hopefully tries to get some damage off. So in team fights, really going to be looking at this Olaf, really going to be looking at this Xin Zhao, and really going to be looking at the backline of DZG.
Yeah, I think the Olaf is going to be the kind of the indicator for how this early and mid game is going to go for Dorado. But we're going to have to wait a couple minutes to see how that early and mid game will go. We're going to take a short break while we wait for the spectator delay and we load ourselves onto the Rift for game 2 of DZG versus DOGE. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Across the sky, who knew a storm would come and break apart this lie? Like a pillar of flame, my love burned through the roof. It couldn't be contained, but you were fireproof. I'm trapped in the void, an endless plane. No armor can protect me from this just threw it away. They even got a Newman, and you still wouldn't stay. I guess you had some reasons. They benched you that one split. They made you play Garen, you, me, but I never thought you'd quit. I'm trapped in the void, an endless plane. No armor can protect me from this pain. Backstabbed by the one who I love most. Betrayed. How am I supposed to cope? I should be glad that we're apart. When you're so reckless with my heart. Revenge for the wound that you can't see. Rebirth from the ashes where you left me. And when your tears fully stacked, I know that you'll come crawling back. We are the ones who have lost, we're still fighting. We are the ones who have lost, we're still fighting. We are the ones who have lost, we're still fighting. We are the ones who have lost, we're still fighting. We are the ones who have lost, we're still fighting. This is goodbye with the words that I'm writing. Backstabbed by the one who I love most. Betrayed. How am I supposed to cope? I should be glad that we're apart. When you're so reckless with my heart. Revenge for the wound that you can't see. Rebirth from the ashes where you left me. And when your tears fully stacked, I know that you'll come crawling back. I love to do just what I want. Do it when you say I won't. Now come and watch me move it. I promise I'ma make you lose it. Looking at me, now come get it. Like what you see, then you got good vision. Boy, this beat hits so different. Let me show you what you've been missing. If you love the party, then the party's in the place. Got the boom, got the bass. I'ma shake it in your face, yeah. Love the party and I love to make a break. Got the boom, got the bang. You could take it to the bank. Going dumb, dee dum dum dum, dee dum dum.
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's coverage of the APL. After a stunning Game 1, DZG are up 1-0 in their series over Dorado Gaming Epsilon, and we're here for Game 2 to see if they can take us to match point or if Dorado can start their comeback.
Yeah, for sure. And we can see both teams sort of opting for a bit of shenanigans here. I mean, DOGE, they look like they're going to just do a typical 5-stack, but we can see DZG look like they are anticipating a potential deep ward from Hybrid Carry or from Big Bald and Thick, as they might be right here. The Q lands.
Nice two-man knock-up from J Core on the Rakan. It's going to spell Hybrid Carry's demise as he gets the flash over the wall with the Ignite forward, and the slap from J Core. It's going to secure first blood for the Rakan.
Yeah, both summoners used there by J Core, losing a little bit of, you know, that engage potential on that Rakan as he did start W level 1, but we talked about this in draft. That's not really the goal of the DZG bot lane, so I don't really think it matters. Potentially, like we said, we could see a dive from Hybrid Carry, but he also lost his flash, so DZG overall eating really good with that kill, even though it went onto the support.
Yeah, that is some scrim information that you know this team was absolutely prepped for when they saw the good level 1 that both Big Bald and Thick and Hybrid Carry had at Champion Select. You see Xin Zhao Olaf, you're like, okay, we know these two are going to try and make a skirmish happen level 1. They want this deep ward, and we're going to punish them for it. And DZG executed beautifully.
Yup, and we can see both junglers starting here on the bot lane, making sure that they get to cover that top lane. I think Sleeping Giant, again, pathing up toward that Maokai is a strange choice when you have just such an aggressive bot lane here. I really am not sure why he's doing that, but yeah, Hybrid Carry starting on this top lane, maybe looking for a dive at level 2. He did burn, when he finishes clear, he did burn his flash, as I said, but, you know, you can still dive the Maokai depending on how you like to juggle the aggro. Big Ball and Thick just looks like he wants to keep up on those trades.
Yep, this is Olaf level 1. We talked about it in draft. He hits 1Q and you are going to lose half your HP, whether you like it or not. I think I actually do like Sleeping Giant opting up towards the top side clear here, as he knows that Olaf is going to be the really big problem in this early game. And while you could try and make a gank happen bottom lane, Seraphine or Rakan aren't going to be providing the most damage in the early game, and neither is Viego. So your job in this early game is really just to make sure that your team can manage their way through it without being behind, and if you can find a way to get ahead by doing some counter ganks or countering a dive that you think might be happening with this Xin Zhao, then you're probably in a pretty good spot.
Yup, and we can see both junglers are starting to finish up their top side buffs, as it looks like Sleeping Giant is opting to continue his clear, looking for that, you know, sort of full clear angle into Crab. But we can see Hybrid Carry looking for those wolves, maybe looking for a reverse clear, but he does have Prio in both sidelines, so he could very well go for this Crab. Sleeping Giant has to be careful here if he wants to look for this.
Yeah, it looks like Big Bald and Thick is going to spot him out here, but Sleeping Giant has the information advantage, has those double buffs, but this is still Olaf level, early levels. You have to respect
Whoa!
This way is not there for Sleeping Giant. His top laner could not protect him, and now this Olaf is going to be a massive problem.
And it looks like they might be looking for the dive. This is exactly what we said. Big, Bald, and Thick. He has that Conquer stacked up. The wave is pushing in. Invictus Rakan, he does have that flash, he does have that health potion running, so it could be very difficult for them to find the dive. I'm not sure if going for it is the best, as yeah, that passive is going to be proc. They're just going to have to look elsewhere, as yeah, the dive will not fall through.
Yeah, that is no dive, but that's still a very nice kill to grab for this Olaf in the top side. We mentioned that if he gets accelerated, it's going to cause problems for DZG, and this is exactly what Dorado we're looking for out of this pick.
Up, and we can see Hybrid Carry. He manages to get his full clear off, manages to get that Crab, and he looks like he's looking for a mid gank. The cage is dropped. The charm.
Man, Monster Penguin is going to be forced to flash. He'll grab a little bit of AP on the way out, but that's an important flash to burn. Tough Daddy not using any summoners in that exchange means that if Hybrid Carry wants to come around again, there's a flash charm waiting for Monster Penguin.
Yeah, Monster Penguin has to be careful here. No flash available for the immobile mage. I could definitely see a world where Orion could potentially roam up, as he does have his flash in tow, did not lose at level 1, unlike J-Corp. And so I would expect that this Thresh would roam up, given that they have been pushing in this wave, this lane, basically the entire game duration here, as we managed to hit 5 minutes. And yeah, ADC is basically dead even here in CS and Gold.
Yeah, they both got their early recalls off, as the Orion is going to look for the hook, but it will go wide, and the wave being big enough means that J-Corp and Poseidon probably won't be looking for some kind of re-engage, as this early in the game, those minions will put in a lot of work and deal a lot of damage.
Yeah, and we can see Jungle here, Hybrid Carry going back to his top side here, while Sleeping Giant already here on this top side. And this is the really big disadvantage of sort of cutting your pathing like Hybrid Carry did, not doing it so linearly, because Sleeping Giant is able to just sort of recycle his camps on repeat, whereas Hybrid Carry sort of has to go around the map and take them, and they won't all spawn at like basically 15 seconds apart like they usually would if you just path up like Sleeping Giant did. So bit behind here in CS, as yeah, we're not gonna take this fight, are we, guys? Yeah, no.
Yeah, no shot. That is a level 6 Olaf. He's got that Ragnarok. That is not a
Tiamat
fight you want to look for. And I think especially with Invictus Rakan's particular rune choice, the Glacial Augment, while it is good for team play, it's gonna mean this laning phase is gonna be really difficult for him, as we just see the Olaf totally ignoring him, as he can do, because this is a Valkyrie with a Bramble Vest. If you auto him, you're gonna be hurting yourself almost as much as you're hurting him. Well, maybe not at this point until he gets that Thorn Mail, but the healing being reduced is a pain for Olaf. So at this point in the game, he's just tagging Maokai with Q, trying to threaten something that happens, but his main goal is CS and turret plates.
Yep, and we can see Sleeping Giant with trying to sneak away that dragon. This is a Cloud Dragon. Nearly 7 minutes into the game. I like this take a lot. Hybrid Carry is on the opposite side of the map. Now has his flashback, so I would expect maybe some mid ganks to occur, but hang on, Tough Daddy smells something suspicious down here.
Oh, Monster Penguin might be there for the punish, though, as they're gonna
They're staying on it.
Yeah, they're looking for it. It's down to 1500. Hybrid Carry still isn't there. They'll be able to find it. The smite comes down. J-Core Core.
Whoa.
Force the Spirit Rush out of Tough Daddy, but Orion with a nice 3-man play is going to look to keep the play going. The hook is going to find Sleeping Giant. They'll donate that kill over to Drunk. But now the Jinx is getting excited. She's looking for resets. She wants to keep the fight going, but Poseidon Gate always going to get tagged by the zap flash forward from Tough Daddy. But the cage is so good from Monster Penguin. It will deny all of the engage. Tough Daddy and Hybrid Carry will lose their flash there and will not be able to find any excess kills.
Yeah, I mean, they managed to find the dragon there and only lose one member. I actually expected them to lose many more, so good disengage there from DZG, but I was honestly thinking they would give up the dragon there. You're being pinched on both lanes. The Thresh and the Jinx are coming from the bot lane, and Tough Daddy is coming from the mid lane, and you could see Hybrid Carry from that mid wave was also coming down, so I'm kind of surprised he didn't just give it up. I'm sure it could have reset, or maybe not, so not sure what would have happened if he gave it up, but all in all, a choice from Sleeping Giant was made, and I would honestly say it could be worth it.
Yeah, the Cloud Dragon will have to see how much value you can actually get. That slow reduction will certainly be nice for Invictus for Khan up there in the top side. And speaking of top side, as we just saw with the gold differences, you can see Big Bald and Thick very comfortable in this lane already, 1,000 gold up and extending his lead in this lane as he's 25 CS up with the kill and with the turret plating. It's only going to get worse for Maokai from here.
Yep, he has that Ragnarok, he has that Tiamat, he has that Blade. Even a 1v2, I'm not really sure if DZG could win. As Sleeping Giant, yeah, I mean, his top laner is pushed in, but he's just forced to sort of go to his Raptors instead of looking for something. As Big Bald and Thick looks like he's roaming down. It looks like they're going straight for this Herald. As hang on, there might be a dash.
Penguin is going to get ignited. He has to flash away. The cage is good, but a nice roam from Orion is going to make sure to keep his mid laner alive and fighting in at this laning phase. As J-Core Core is here, but Monster Penguin is so low, I don't think they want this 2v2, despite the level 6 being there for Rakan.
Tough Daddy has R.
Yeah, Tough Daddy is stuck in the cage, though. They won't find the kill. They'll finally find the kill with the Monster Penguin, with the tower shot will come through for J-Core Core, finding his second kill of the game. That fight was just an absolute mess, but it's a 1-for-1 overall.
Yeah, I mean, Tough Daddy manages to find the kill, but the tower says the line that Thanos is known for, says, "I am inevitable," and the turret shot ends up coming through despite the massive amount of distance he gained on it. But most importantly, that's the ultimate burn from J-Corp. As, oh my god, he's close here, he might be in trouble.
Engaged on, has to get the dash away, but Poseidon Game is there for the follow-up. The Encore will find the Thresh now in the Orion. Poor Orion is just going to try and make as much space as possible for his Jinx, because he knows if that Thresh body is anywhere close by, that's a guaranteed hook for Sleeping Giant, and it will just be the kill to get it over.
Yup, a bait into a kill there. That Encore managing to find the Orion, and yeah, that's just a clean kill for the side of DZG. As both teams 10 minutes into the game, the gold is close to dead even. DOGE have a slight gold advantage, but I kind of attribute that to the fact that top lane is just so insanely ahead in gold. But if you subtract the top lane gold difference, then I think it's basically even here. DCG do have that dragon, DOGE do have that herald, so it really is just a matter of how they play these next few minutes, and whoever plays it better, this game could really sway in their favor.
Yeah, really big deal is Olaf already having that Ravenous Hydra for himself. It's going to be this laning phase that was already difficult for Invictus. Rakan even more difficult, as you can just see. The axes are flying. This is such an uncomfortable spot for Maokai to be in, and it's an impossible spot for his jungler to come and help him. Because how do you gank it Olaf? You're two champions that are fairly reliant on your crowd control landing to make a gank happen, and when he can just press R and ignore it all, he's going to 1v2 you guys.
Yep, and we can see the bot lane of DOGE sort of going in that river, getting some wards down, getting some information down as a group, and yeah, they are in control of the top side of this river here. As yeah, Big Bald and Thick just looking around as, hang on.
On side, Poseidon is Gabe, is the target. A nice tank from J-Core Core to get the hook away from him. He's going to use the quickness to protect the Stairfield, but she cannot escape from the wind becomes lightning. Hybrid Carry will find their first kill of the game.
Yup, I love that name. I love the name of that ability. I think that might honestly be my favorite name of any ability in the whole game. Wind Become Lightning, that's just such a cool name. Yeah, Hybrid Carry managing to pick up that kill for himself. The Xin Zhao now on the board as he struggled a little bit, being so far behind in CS compared to Sleeping Giant. Sure, he did manage to find a little bit of success with that stint in the on the first dragon, but that's about it. But him getting this kill is actually huge now, as he does have that Iron Spike whip. But
tough, Daddy. He's got the Spirit Rush. He wants to keep the fight going, but doesn't believe he has enough for lethal. Monster Penguin does have the Primordial Burst, but Olaf is here. Hang on, Tough Daddy's taking the tower, but the ulti will not come out in time. Big Bald and Thick will just walk in, clean that one up, and walk out.
Yup, and just like that, he was never heard from again. Big, Bald, and Thick, 2-0 now on this Olaf. This Olaf looking really scary. In Select, we talked about how much CC and peel and crowd control DZG had in their pocket. And yeah, I mean, the one champion who literally ignores all the CC is the one ahead in this game. So DZG have to feel a little bit of fear coming into this game now, as it will start to continue. And they'll look to get this dragon, but yeah, as DOGE will get this dragon. Now that's a Ocean Dragon, and for someone like an Olaf, that'll be a really big deal, as the Chemtech soul coming through. Now this is the soul Olaf wants.
Yeah, if he can get the soul, the extra damage reduction and extra damage that's pumped out when you're under 50% health is a disaster for DZG. Now I'm gonna fight for some DZG rights here. This is obviously just a bait, so that Sleeping Giant has a really good body to pick up when he gets Big, Bald, and Thick killed. And yeah, you see Olaf actually just beating on this Malcolm.
Yeah, he's gonna kill him.
He's gonna be popped. He's gonna look for the dive. And Big Khan flashes away, but then he somehow finds him. Big, Bald, and Thick with the solo kill topside. And he'll find another play for himself and probably just a full tower.
Yeah, and we can see Sleeping Giant looking to contest here. He doesn't have the Ragnarok available, and the Heartbreaker is available for Sleeping Giant. But yeah, he knows he can't fight him. The low HP ability for Olaf to just fight at that state is absolutely insane. You cannot underestimate it, as he just walks away. But a Big Bad and Thick, he could just look to continue to push this top turret. Invictus Recon does not have the TP, so this turret is going to be completely doomed. And Sleeping Giant, yeah, he's not able to defend it. This is a lot of gold, as
the quickness on the Drunk. They're looking for the all-in, and there's the slow. The Encore will find the Drunk, but a beautiful cleanse. Captain jacks his way out of the fight, loses his summoners, but manages to survive.
Yup, the Drunk manages to survive, but burned both of his summoner spells here. Sleeping Giant should definitely look to, you know, capitalize on this summonerless Jinx and maybe look for a dive here, as he is opting to recall. I would expect him to go toward this bot lane, as, yeah, it looks like all of them are resetting, and maybe they can converge at the same time to punish the Drunk for not having any sums.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can make something happen. I will say a big downside for DZG in this game is those 2 kills going over to J-Core Core. That first blood maybe not being a huge problem as it was in early Ruby Crystal for the Rakan in lane. It makes that laning phase safer, but that second one especially, now 2/3 of their kills. The gold is nice on a support, and their items are cheap, so you'll get to those item spikes faster, but you really would prefer to have those kills on Monster Penguin or on Poseidon.
Yeah, and we can see DOGE looking for that second Herald. Everyone from DZG is basically here in the bot lane. They can't look for anything. And yeah, Sleeping Giant just looking for picks onto the Drunk. He knows he doesn't have that flash. He knows he doesn't have that cleanse. So this Jinx really vulnerable, as it might be a bait.
I don't think this is the engage he wanted to have. He thought he had a Seraphine all on their lonesome, but Rakan and Viego come in to save the Sarah Queen. It's another kill for Sleeping Giant.
Yeah, and that might actually be the turret here, as Sleeping Giant is alone, and Jinx is not Sleeping Giant is alone. The Drunk is alone, and maybe they could look for a dive here, as the Heartbreaker is still available for Viego, but it looks like he's just going to go to the top lane, continue to push those camps, and maybe try and reinforce Invictus Recon here from the pressure that he has been suffering from all game. As yeah, Big Bald and Thick takes that turret. He's now unlocked around the map, able to move around. We can see him in that top side of the map, and, you know, not having a turret to worry about, definitely why he's doing that.
Yeah, and we're seeing kind of the issue with DZG having the Seraphine on the bottom lane and that lack of AD. Sleeping Giant is just gonna
run away.
Watch Big Bald and Thick walk at him and just sprint away. But yeah, the lack of AD carry in this bottom lane, it means that Seraphine in this early game won't have a lot of tower pushing power, and they won't be able to actually take that full tower away from the Drunk. He'll be able to defend it with the amount of wave clear that Jinx has.
Yeah, and I mean, They're probably DZG are probably looking at their items and thinking that they need to go some anti-heal, but you look at the champions of DZG, and anti-heal is sort of out of the way for basically all of their build paths. You could have Rakan
Really only
go.
Seraphine.
Yeah, it really is only Seraphine here, and Seraphine with that Oblivion Orb. Oblivion Orb has been ripped on by every single analyst out there, so the, you know, value of its purchase is still questionable because, I mean, look at the rest of DOGE. Basically have no healing across the board. You could see the Xin Zhao. He does have that Gore Drinker. He does have that passive as for the Orion.
Yep, it's still Rakan. He is 2 levels up on the Orion, as Orion has been doing a lot of roaming in this particular game. But yeah, hunting down Rakan is going to be kind of a difficulty, as it looks like DOGE are just going to pop this second Herald in the mid lane. They'll take the tower, as Orion's going to flash forward. They'll get the flash out of Mobster Penguin, but Orion is going to take a little bit of punishment for it, as Hybrid Carry just wants to walk into the wall to donate a little bit more AP to Mobster. As Sleeping Giant is now here. Mobster Penguin's the target. He's getting hooked on Big Bald and Thick, looking for his way, and he's got the Ragnarok. Mobster Penguin is just going to get picked up and deleted. There's no way he can take part in this fight. But Mobster Penguin will find the Orion, but in the meantime, this Olaf is just a menace as J-Core will find the shutdown on the tower. No, the shutdown went over to Sleeping Giant. Really important as Tough Daddy flashes in and looking for the kill, finds 2 kills on the back half of that fight. Well, managed to go down to the towers. Invictus Rakan will pick that one up and now has to flash away from Hybrid Carry and the Drunk as they're looking for the dive, but Invictus Rakan wants to go back in, wants to find the kill to Hybrid Carry. The tower shot will find him! Maokai will find 2 kills at the end of that fight.
Really well played there from Tough Daddy, managing to turn that fight around in what looked to be a DOGE stomp, as Big Bald and Thick just managed to get 2 quick kills under the tower of DZG. But yeah, that Ari really managing to, you know, turn that fight around with those 2 kills. And, you know, both teams really not respecting the tower there, especially DOGE. They went in for way more. They tried to bite off way more than they could chew. And the turret was honestly the reason that they all died there. If the turret didn't exist there, probably would have been a clean ace for DOGE, but now, no, we have a little bit of a skirmish here as the Ragnarok is yet again available, but the dragon is the target.
Yeah, I do also want to point out, as we get set up for this dragon, Jinx got to take 2 solo towers there over the course of that play, along with picking up a couple of assists during that team fight. So she has her Infinity Edge at 19 minutes. This is a fed 80 carry, and if you thought the Olaf was a problem, you have not seen a Jinx with a Thresh behind her.
Yeah, the Jinx really starting to come online as she manages to complete 2 items there, and that'll be a free dragon over to DOGE. DZG conceding it, knowing they cannot fight Big Bald and Thick, and just the amount of damage that he brings straight up. So they're going to have to look for other avenues to win this game. This is exactly the position, ironically, that DOGE were put in game 1, where they couldn't fight DZG straight up at some point and had to look for side lane plays, had to look for objectives on the side and just beat them in other ways, and they couldn't manage to find that. But DZG, maybe they'll manage to make something happen.
Yeah, we are already starting to see the magic resist options come for DOGE as well. The Hex Drinker in inventory for that Olaf, the Mercury Treads for the Xin Zhao, and the Force of Nature as well for him is going to be, it's already really difficult for the long-range carries of DZG, like the Vigar and the Seraphine, to deal with Xin Zhao, as that ultimate is going to make him die and more of us.
Once you hit,
hit by 1 the Q, which means you know what is going to happen. The cage means nothing in the face of the Ragnarok. Olaf moment, he gets 1 Q and he gets a kill.
Yep, that's now 6-1 for Big Bald Thick, managing to kill Mobster Penguin here as the pings are coming out. DOGE might be looking to go on a Baron as Hybrid Carry is starting it up and the bot lane is roaming. This could be a very early 21-minute Baron. We saw this last game too.
Yeah, Sleeping Giant is in the area. They don't have information. Hybrid Carry tanks up that Baron for quite a bit.
Yeah.
He does have the extra powered lance from the Chemtech Rift, but just with the amount of damage that Hybrid Carry took, they are going to zone themselves away from it. As they do also have Big Bold and Thick on the bottom side, just happily pushing away. His ultimate's going to be up pretty soon. I don't know if Monster Penguin can actually deal with him. He can wave clear for sure, but this Vigard, as soon as this Ragnarok is back up, is going to struggle to try and make Olaf feel anything.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like the Olaf is just playing side lane duty this game, and Big Bald and Thick did that excellently last game with the Gwen, even though he wasn't as ahead. But it looks like DOGE, they see all of them in the mid lane, so they're going to just restart up this Baron. But Sleeping Giant is in that bush. He could look for a steal as the blue ward is dropped, gives them a hint of vision there before being taken out. Oh, hang on.
And Big Bald and Thick is just in the backline 1v4. He does not care. This is an Olaf certified moment. He's just walking into everybody. He's not been CC'd at all. It's a double kill for Olaf. Sleeping Giant trying to make something happen on the backline, but there is nothing for him to do. Big Bald and Thick is just unstoppable in this game.
Yeah, this Olaf is just completely unkillable for the side of DZG. They just cannot do anything to try and fight it, and that'll be a free Baron. Jungler is down, top laner is down, everyone else on DZG is sent home limping and packing, and yeah, that'll just be a quick 22.5-minute Baron for DOGE, which is really good because now they can just push their lead in preparation for this next dragon, which could put them at soul point.
Yeah, this is kind of the issue with rotating that Maokai so early on after revealing it to be the top lane in game 1. We saw DZG ban away that Olaf's second rotation in that game 1 just to protect the Maokai. But if you reveal that Maokai that early, it's really easy for Dorado to grab that Olaf for themselves. And again, with a very CC-focused composition and a laning phase that is incredibly weak from Maokai, how do you ever punish this pick? How do you get Olaf into a spot where he can't carry the game?
Don't. That's the answer, as yeah, Olaf is just basically able to run a train over here in this game. He has the Jock shows, he has the Hydra, he's basically just as unkillable as he is unduelable. There's no one on the team of DZG that at any point was able to 1v1 him, and I don't really think there's any way for DZG to even take him down at this point, as he has a tank item, he has that Maw against the team that, as we've criticized and said, is very AP heavy, and most importantly, he has that Jock show, so that tankiness is always going to be there.
Yeah, Monster Penguin does have the Void Staff, but with the Roa, there isn't a lot of actual damage to back it up. They really are just relying on the actual passive and the first strike from Vigar to do enough damage. As, yeah, Big Bald and Thick with the Baron buff. It's just going to be happy to push in the side lane that Ragnarok to get through the cage. It'd be totally fine. I do want to check in on the Vigar stacks really quickly as Dorado Gaming start to get their push in, as we're going to have to hang on. But thank God. Decor Core is caught and D lead, and there's nothing for him to do. Big Bald and Thick doesn't have that ulti for himself, and he's in 1v3. This is the spot where they might be able to kill Olaf. If they're ever going to do it, it has to be now. The Primordial Burst doesn't do enough damage. The Maw is now popped. This Olaf is just unkillable. And Victor Zakana has to bring that stopwatch on the front side just to make the fight continue to happen. The Drunk is going to find that first reset and start to pop off. Don't forget about the Fed Jinx in the face of DZG. And it looks like Dorado are going to look to finish off this game.
Yeah, Dorado, they have 5 members strong, a little bit low, but I don't really think there's much that the remaining members of DZG can do. Mobster Penguin maybe could go for that cage, but yeah, it looks like DOGE are just opting to not push. They're opting to go straight for that dragon and make sure that DZG cannot claim it for themselves, as the members are starting to respawn. About 5 seconds here for Poseidon, as he will be respawning on that Seraphine. So DOGE just playing it safe, trying not to overextend, as the end game from DCG was cutting it pretty close, and I don't think DOGE want to cut it as close as them.
Yeah, not this time. Now that we have a moment to breathe, I would like to do a Vigar stack check-in just to see how much AP he does have behind him, to see if he can actually start to do damage to this Olaf. He has 400 AP. On any other champion, I would say that that is a respectable amount, but this is Vigar you're talking about. At 25 minutes into the game, he should be cresting like 700.
Yeah, and I also kind of want to take time to look at the itemization choices, specifically of Sleepy Giant. Now, a few things here. If you're the sole AD if you're like the sole AD threat of this team, you need to build more damage. There's someone in chat who said that. Yeah, PVS said that. He said you need to be able to build that Kraken Slayer, and he is absolutely right. Kraken Slayer would provide so much more utility than making sure that you get that Divine Sunder, and followed by that, the Black Cleaver second item is just doesn't provide any value at this point, because it isn't the tankiness that's making this Olaf unkillable, it's the healing and the amount of and the team that he has behind him. So I'm gonna rip on Sleepy Giant a little bit here for his itemization here on the Viego while we're at it and we have a little bit of time to breathe, as you said, as this game has been ridiculously action-packed.
Yeah, I do also want to say the lack of anti-heal for DZG is kind of shocking in this particular series. Like, you mentioned that Olaf is a really big healing threat, but I would say Ahri and Xin Zhao are similarly healing threats, with that Ahri passive recently providing a lot of healing as Hang On, Sleeping Giant may be the target, but has enough tenacity for himself that the hook will not be able to be followed up on as another hook.
Wow!
From Orion. Just finding the hooks over the wall. This is the Thresh Fun Zone, as the hook cooldown did get nerfed a little bit in its most recent patch. It only refunds 2 seconds instead of 3 now, but you can still find plenty of hooks with this champion with the amount of CDR that is there for support itemization.
Yeah, and we can see DOGE, they're knocking at the doors and the gates of DZG as they try to defend. They're going to send 2 to Big, Bald, and Thick, but it might not matter. He's just pushing it down as Hang On.
Has to flash away. The rocket will not find, but Big, Bald, and Thick, meantime, 1 versus 3 on the bottom side. All of these CC champions, but where's the damage? Flash away, and the Maw is going to be popped. Big, Bald, and Thick actually Hang On, lost the right.
Might actually get him.
That W on, he's still got plenty of healing. That Primordial Burst is being saved, but it doesn't do enough damage. Jacob Core is going to flash to find the knockup, but there's just not enough damage for the Olaf. Now Hybrid Carry is going to look to get in, finds that way, becomes lightning, but doesn't have the extra follow-up. But in the meantime, DOGE have found 2 inhibitors for themselves and are looking to push in for the rest of the base of DZG. His 3rd inhibitor will eventually go down, and now DZG, you have to make your last stand. You have to find something to happen. From the Orion is going to burst out of Aegis Recon. Jason's going to get a reset. Sweet Daddy is Spirit rushing as well. Big Bald and Thick doesn't even need the Ragnarok to go on a rampage. They're looking for the follow-up. They're looking to clean this game up. It's a double kill for the Drunk. A nice hook from Orion again. The man does not miss. It's a triple kill for the Drunk. He wants the quadra kill, but Monster Penguin will not give it to him. But in the meantime, the rest of the DOGE, I think, are just going to finish up this game as Tough Daddy does a little bit of trolling in the Nexus. But yeah, this one is all done but the Nexus.
Yup, and it looks like DOGE will pick up and fight back here in Game 2. They're looking to tie up the series. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have a series on our hands.
Yeah, I did predict that DOGE would find 1 game, and I think this is going to be a slap in the face to DZG, that if you're going to draft full AP CC kind of composition, you can't leave the Olaf open. Or if you want to pick this kind of composition, you ban the Olaf. I think DZG will be able to pick it up cleanly in Game 2 and mill this on to match point. But either way, a very nice win from Dorado Gaming. The punish on the top side from the Olaf, I think, was an excellent draft gap. It just felt so clean from them from minute 1.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I'm DZG, I'm looking at the enemy comp and I'm saying, all right, we need to get rid of that Olaf. It was a huge problem for them and basically was the solo carry here in Game 2, as it took time for Jinx and for Ahri to sort of get their wings, you know, and be able to fly along with that Olaf. And so I for sure think that we'll see an Olaf ban here in Game 3. And speaking of Game 3, we're going to take a short little break before we get to that. So don't go anywhere. We have more coverage of the semifinal matchup between DZG Olympus and Dorado Gaming Esports. See you later.
Every time I touch Mac.
Welcome back, everybody, to our coverage of the APL semifinals. Dorado Gaming Epsilon have tied up our series 1-1 here against DZG, who have taken themselves back to blue side to see if they can repeat their success from game 1.
Yeah, and I mean, both teams probably looking at what they can, keep similar and keep different in the draft. I think both teams probably have to assume that Olaf is going to be taken away again. And it was just a humongous problem for them in the last game. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it gets banned away instantly. But no, we'll have relatively the same bans here as DZG to start ban out the Gragas again, taking away that 3-way flex that they're really scared of, not letting DOGE get that flex pick off. As I said in game 1, an incredible pick that basically functions in 3 different lanes, all while being good at all of them. Very dangerous pick as we see DOGE banning away that Jarvan, still again making sure that Sleepy Giant cannot get his hands on the King of Demacia. He's the king now because I believe the other king died in a comic issue
for the Katarina comics, but he did get killed by Katarina. It was finally confirmed. But we do see the bans pretty much mirroring themselves from game 1, but now shifting.
Guys, please ban Olaf.
The Cassiopeia is banned away. DZG are keeping their same bans. The Sejuani would come through if they want to keep all 3 of these bans the same. We did talk about it a little bit between the games, but just the fact that you want to have that Maokai pick, that sort of disabling pick, there is the Olaf. So the Sejuani will be allowed through. But now, if you want to grab that Maokai for yourselves and keep that safe top laner, you know that he can match up well into the Gwen. It really was the Olaf that was the issue. But it looks like DZG are probably just going to try and mirror their game 1 draft. The Cassiopeia is banned away, but there are other picks in the mid lane. So they can just grab the Senna for themselves. Looking at all the S champions between Senna, Seraphine, Shen, and Sejuani, they will lock in the Senna for them.
Yeah, DZG maybe looking to run it back here for their bot lane. Senna TK, a possibility on the board as DOGE. They have that Olaf taken away, though, and there isn't a Maokai locked in yet. So I'm curious, are they predicting DZG to pick a Maokai maybe here in R2 and R3? And what's their response here? But we see a Thresh hover for DOGE as they might be looking to run it back here with the bot lane. Maybe potentially a Jinx Thresh, but no, we'll see the Sejuani locked in for DOGE, taking it away from DZG, making sure that they cannot have it, securing the tank jungler that is really good here in this current meta, has basically everything you want in a jungler wrapped up into one champion. CC, good ganks, good scaling around the board, reliable front line, has good objective takes, and so the Sejuani locked in for DOGE, followed by the Thresh for the support, followed for the Orion, and curious to see how DZG are going to respond. Maybe we'll see the TK.
Yeah, I do like the Thresh into Senna early game, as the amount of displacement that Thresh has really makes it difficult for Senna to play the game without cleanse and without flash. And we're going to finally see the Sejuani that DZG have been so scared of in games 1 and 2. But Kindred is very, very good at punishing tank junglers if this is what Sleepy Giant wants to do. And it is! We're going to see the Kindred that has been banned away from him so often. A very different drafting style, I would say, for both teams in this time around. The Sejuani, the early jungle picks for both sides now being played face up. Have to see what DZG want to pair the Senna with. The Seraphine and the Tahm Kench are both available. And I would say the Tahm Kench probably has a better matchup than Thresh, but that is a Swain for a little bit of flexibility for DZG.
I gotta say, going back to the Kindred, I love it when this champion is picked in competitive play. They are so exciting to watch. I almost said she. I hate that misconception, and I refuse to use it myself, even though I'll probably slip up a few times on broadcast. I love seeing them play. They have such a cool play style when it comes to jungle. They're one of my favorite champions in solo queue, and gosh, I'm so excited to see it here. Thank you, Sleepy Giant, for picking that up. As yeah, like you said, the Swain locked in for them, followed by the Jax. A very standard top laner here, and Big, Bald, and Thick looking to be that lane bully aggressor here again. Just looking to, you know, slap around Invictus Rakan. The only difference being instead of 2 axes, he has a lamp post this game.
Yeah, I wonder what the bans are going to be to protect this Jax. I'm not surprised to see the Maokai taken away, as again, very good at just making the laning phase difficult to play for these tanks. As DZG, they have the, I guess, technically the AD carry in Senna already locked in for themselves, so they can start to ban away some of these Thresh pairings like the Xayah and like the Jinx. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Dorado Gaming ban away that Malphite. We've been talking about it a little bit between broadcasts. He's slated for some nerfs next patch, and he is a very strong tank top laner right now. So not too surprising to see him be hovered as the ban. I think they'll just lock that one away.
Yeah, and I mean, no mid lane bans here from DZG here in, you know, game 1. Not really respecting Tough Daddy. I feel like the Ahri was definitely a good pick that countered a decent portion of what Vigar wanted to do. But no, it looks like they're just going to keep up with their theme of banning away the ADCs from the making sure that that Jinx cannot be picked up for them here, as Jinx really is a good champion at, you know, kind of sort of trying to, I said a lot of words there, trying to get, you know, DZG low with the range of those rockets. And you look at DZG's comp, they have a lot of range with just that Kindred Senna alone. So a champion with as much range as Jinx, definitely a good thing to ban away from them.
Yeah, and there's another very good pairing for the Thresh, the Aphelios. I was about to say that there's a lot of potential pairings for Thresh still up. You've got Ashe, you've got Caitlyn, you've got Tristana if you want to have a very aggressive lane. The Varus is still open. Zeri still up and available, but DOG are just going to lock away the Aphelios for themselves. I don't hate this pick. Aphelios Thresh is a very good and very safe laning phase. As DZG, they're going to grab that counter to the Jax. They're going to pick up the Shen, which surprisingly actually went unbanned, as they will grab that one for themselves.
Yeah, and just touching up on the Aphelios, the reason they're so good is not only because of their engage, but Aphelios, immobile ADC with something like a Lantern, really able to get himself out of those sticky situations in time. And it looks like that Shen lock-in, really good counter when it comes to someone like Jax, who really, you know, thrives in those extended fights, trying to get those autos off. After level 6, they become empowered every 3 auto attacks, plus that W just being able to get blocked by Shen, followed by a Victor pick here for DZG, and it looks like that's what Mobster Penguin is going to be playing. So that looks like it'll be a Swain, sorry, ADC here. Swain Senna bot lane.
Yeah, this is another DZG classic. Their bottom lanes really like all of the flexibilities that they have with the Senna. Swain is one of these champions that provides a lot of magic damage and can also bring a lot of CC and teamfight potential. And DZG have drafted themselves an incredibly big scaling composition. I would say all 5 of these champions are happier the later the game goes. And on the other side, for Dorado Gaming Epsilon, Aphelios, Jax, and Ahri aren't any slouches in the late game. So I think we're expecting this game to, at the very least, go past 30, maybe even the 35-minute mark.
Yeah, and I mean, DZG, they look like they're drafting for themselves a relatively good poke composition. Senna, Kindred, Victor, these are all champions that can really hit you from quite far away. And I will say that this comp is one of the ones I feel like teams struggle to pull off the most, especially in these types of levels. Pulling off that pick comp, making sure that you have that correct spacing, especially in enclosed spaces like the jungle, around the dragon pit, is really where we're going to see if they have mastery over a comp that they have drafted for themselves. And on the other side, you have DOGE, a lot easier to execute, a lot more engaged with things like the Jax, like the Thresh, like the Sejuani just able to get picks, engage fights, and overall, it looks like we have two very contrasting styles of play that both teams are going to be tested for in this game 3.
Yeah, I will say I like this DCG comp a lot better than their game 2 composition. Not only do we not have the Olaf problem, but we have a significant source of physical damage outside of just one member. They have a much better split in terms of damage profile between Swain and Victor bringing a lot of magic damage, and Kindred and Senna being hyper-scaling 80 carries. If they can grab a couple kills in the early game and start to get that 1-2 item power spikes, they're going to be such huge threats that I'm not sure that Sejuani and Thresh will have enough tank stats to deal with them. It really is going to be on Jax and on Ahri having the backline access to either kill Kindred before she can ult, which is a big ask, or try and rip through one of these backline carries through the Shen ulti.
Yeah, and like you said, even if they can manage to get Kindred low on that ultimate, it might not even matter, as the Stand United will always kind of come in clutch here. So killing this Kindred, killing those priority targets is definitely a pretty tall task for the side of the OGE, but I think they have drafted correctly for it. You know, things like Jax's evasion, copy and paste the, Jax enters evasion, followed by a ton of Arabic numerals
Jax
in
enters the
there.
defensive stance.
Yep. And so I think Jax is a really good pick here from DOGE to sort of weasel himself into the backline, because the AD threats from DZG are very attack heavy, very auto attack heavy. And yeah, there's just a lot going for both of these teams, and it really is going to come down to which team is better at executing their ideal comps.
Yeah, I think this is comfort for DZG, so we'll have to see if they can take which team will take us to match point. If DZG can keep the blue side 100% win rate and grab themselves that second win, or if Dorado Gaming can keep the momentum from that winning game 2. We're going to take a short break while we wait for the client to load up, and we'll get ourselves onto Summoner's Rift for game 3. Dorado Gaming Epsilon versus DZG Olympus. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody, to our coverage of the APL semifinals. We've got an exciting matchup here between Dorado Gaming, Epsilon, and DZG Olympus, and Sleeping Giant repping the new skins. We love our April Fools here. Wolf and Lamb Kindred, and an exciting Kindred pick into this composition of Dorado Epsilon.
Yup, and just looking at, you know, sort of the runes and items here, we can see that Sleeping Giant actually opted for the blue pet onto Kindred, which is pretty uncommon against Kindred. I've seen them go green, I've seen them go red sometimes when they want to be really aggressive, but never have I actually seen them go blue. So I'm curious to see how this Kindred is going to function when that pet eventually expires and when he gets the required camps to do so, as yeah, it looks like they will be spotted. A DOGE will be spotted out on a ward here by, yeah, and they just drop a ward there on the red buff of DZG to get some information. They'll now know where Sleeping Giant starts, which I think is really crucial when you're playing against a champion who likes to gank like Kindred. And speaking of likes to gank, we can see that press the attack there on that Kindred, meaning that really wants to go in for those early trades, really would expect her to go to those you know, side lanes like the bot lane, like the top lane, because they just have so much insurance to be able to help out with those ganks, you know, get that CC that Kindred lacks in that early game and secure some of those kills.
Yeah, the ward will spot Sleeping Giant, like you talked about, so Dorado Gaming will have full information on where Sleeping Giant is starting and what direction he's padding towards, as Hybrid Carry is also starting on the bottom side of the map. We'll have to see if the Sejuani is going to make something happen in this bottom lane, as it looks like that might be where Kindred wants to go, as we're seeing level 1 of the top side, lethal tempo Jax. This is, yeah, a nightmare for Shen. Before he gets that safety zone of the W, it's really difficult for him to try and match up into the Jax auto attacks. So, Big Bald and Thick getting his licks in while he can.
Yeah, bot laners here still level 1, will hit level 2 very soon here, as yeah, we see DZG hit level 2 followed by DOGE, so DZG have a slight experience lead over their counterparts, as it might not matter. We talked about this in the draft though. DOGE have a lot of damage with this Thresh of Aphelios comp, so DZG have to be careful, as a little bit of trading.
Lay came through, but no hook for the Orion. I wonder if it was on cooldown from maybe a failed potential level 2. I do also want to talk about summoner spell choices really quick, as we've got double TP from both sides, as the Trunk is just going to lose a meaty chunk out of his health bar. Nice hook from the Orion. They're going to try and make something happen. Now flash and a cleanse from J-Core, but Poseidon Game is now the target. He's ignited. He's going down. A nice two-man brew from the Swain, though, but Aphelios has the sustain from that red gun, so he's still okay in the end. It is 2 summoners traded for 1, and a lot of health bar advantage for DOGE.
Yeah, we can see Hybrid Carry, he's stalking this mid lane mobster. Penguin hugging that bot side, though, in preparation for a gank like that. Oh, the eye.
The root, the hook is there, but a nice cleanse and flash from the Drunk. He will be able to survive. Close, and it's summoners across the board, but they just the exhausting flash for each one of these lanes. Sorry, every time we come up the top lane, someone's gonna get candy creep.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Sleeping Giant. He misses the mark on that grab and will be forced with no mark, but might not matter here. Hybrid Carry is taken pretty low. They're pinging it. They're looking to fight it. Kindred's running down.
Yeah, that does mean that Jax is going to have free reign on the top side. Tough Daddy will find Sleeping Giant for plenty of burst, but with Hybrid Carry recalling, I imagine that this scuttle is just going to go over to the Kindred. I didn't see which one had popped its first mark, so yeah, it looks like that one will have the mark on it, as Kindred will pick that one up later, so we'll just be hang on solo kill! Top side, Big Bald and Thick! The final 1v1 against Invictus for Khan.
Yeah, an absolutely monstrous solo kill. As hang on, they might not stop here. The bot lane has no sums.
Yeah, J-Core, they have no summoners. J-Core, I think, is just going to be left to be Wolves, with Wolf behind him trying to pick up Hybrid Carry. They want that stack for the Kindred. They will get a hunt. Now Sleeping Giant wants to keep this fight going, wants to keep the damage onto Orion. Another nice root. Poseidon in his game does not miss. Sleeping Giant is focusing the wrong target. No! The Orion will find the kill. The Drunk gets one picked up, but Poseidon in his game will find a double kill.
Sleeping Giant had set himself up there to be 3-0 after that fight, but he was focusing Orion. He was focusing the wrong target. If he killed the Drunk, he would have easily gotten that kill and then maybe gotten the Thresh as well. And a 3-0 Kindred already with 2 marks. Man, that is terrifying, but it looks like Sleeping Giant will just walk away with a 1-1 and 2 scoreline. 2 marks in. If I'm Kindred, I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, you're still fairly happy, but you kind of have to be kicking yourself for the communication there. Yeah, I think even if they were both just focusing the same target, no matter which one it was, that's a couple more kills for Kindred, maybe picking up the last hit as to the engage on the top side. But Invictus Rakan is Shen, so he will just dash away. But yeah, that's the thing with competitive play like this. You have those voice comms. You need to be communicating with your teammates who the focus is. You have to be yelling out whoever you want to kill. And if communication wasn't there, which means Dorado Gaming will be able to pick up a couple of things for themselves as Invictus Rakan, a nice taunt and flash away from Hybrid Carry. Will manage to survive, but this is a really bad state for Shen to be in.
Yeah, the wave is pushing into the tower of Big, Bald, and Thick. You can see all of those caster minions, they're low, but they'll do the job. So Invictus Rakan now forced to basically lane under the tower of Big, Bald, and Thick for a very long time, and he's not going to be able to do anything in this situation. The top wave is absolutely screwed for Invictus Rakan here. He's probably going to need Sleeping Giant to roam up and help him out with that.
Yeah, this is a disastrous spot for the Shen to be in. Really nice positioning from Hybrid Carry to really let Jax take full advantage of the minor lead that he got off of that kill. And it's going to mean that Invictus Rakan is not only going to be delayed on that level 6, which is important for the rest of the map, but also just screwed out of a lot of gold and XP, which means that he's going to be less useful in the laning phase, which will allow Big, Bald, and Thick to extend this lead even farther.
Yeah, and I mean, we can see the top CS already materializing to be absolutely gargantuan. 52-33, and yep, this is exactly what we talked about. Forced to lane against him as the ult's popped.
That's the ultimate pop. The lethal tempo is there. The jump is up in just a couple of seconds. There's the jump in. Whoa. Shen has the nice stump. This nice
Kindred's coming.
But now Sleeping Giant is up here. They're looking to wrap around. The mark is coming down. Big, Bald, and Thick is very low on mana. Has enough to get the Counter-Strike off. I think Sleeping Giant, with Flash and ulti, could have made something happen there, but it's going to play it safe and not go in under tower.
Yeah, I mean, Big, Bald, and Thick, he did also have Flash there, so it wasn't really a guarantee on whether or not he would get the kill, but what he will guarantee to get is a plate here for the Kindred, and it looks like Hybrid Carry, they see the Kindred over there in the top side, and so in return, they're going to get a Mountain Drake, an absolutely huge pickup for the top side here of DOGE, as they have a lot of tankiness, a lot of armor stacking. We can already see 2 Ruby Crystals for Hybrid Carry in his inventory, and so a Mountain Dragon really useful for them here in this early game to give them some extra little tankiness.
Yeah, and it will scale really well, especially on Thresh and Sejuani, whose passives already increase their armor and magic resist by a good margin. For Thresh especially, that armor increase I think is going to be very important into the threats that are Sleeping Giant and Core. It means that you can focus on building magic resist a little bit more, as Thresh passive will give you that guaranteed scaling armor that you really need. As we see now the top side, Tough Daddy is going to try and make a roam up here, but will be spotted on that ward. I think there may have been a potential dive setup happening, but it looks like it will be spotted out.
Yeah, and it does also is also kind of unfortunate for the Sleeping Giant that he did mark the Jax, and it's just now coming up to the point where he has to mark the bot laner again. Definitely delays a little bit of power if he does manage to get a gank off, but yeah, Orion will be the next one marked by the Kindred, so would not be surprised to see if he goes down for the bot lane to secure that mark number 3, because once Kindred gets 3 to 4 marks, that's really when she starts to hit home, really starts to get that range increase along with that damage, and that's when you need to be careful. As speaking of being careful,
a 2-man root from beside this game on the bottom side. They won't find the full engage just yet, as Sleeping Giant is nearby, but not in range to make something happen just quite yet. But these Aphelios turrets are putting in a lot of work already, as we see Core and Poseidon taking a lot of damage. The hook barely going to miss there. Sleeping Giant is going to try and find his way in now. I think still outside of the vision of the Drunk and the Orion. But I think Core is selling it a little bit too much, as Kindred will just walk into the bottom side and start taking some camps away from Sejuani.
Yeah, and we can see that Herald was just taken away by the Sejuani, which gives Sleeping Giant the green light to go ahead and take mark number 3 here, getting that Gromp, securing it, and the bot lane of DZG is pushing in, so maybe they could look for a dive here. The Orion does not yet have the box available, and the ult from Kindred is there, so maybe could see something, but looks like the bot lane of DZG are just going to take a reset.
Yeah, and so far, actually a fairly quiet game outside of the early action.
Whoa.
And really nice ulti from Hybrid Carry, actually predicting the flash on a Monster Penguin. But they won't be able to find the follow-up as it is just a little bit too far away. A little bit of style from Hybrid Carry, but they won't find anything else.
Yeah, that was actually a really cool ultimate to see from Hybrid Carry, but unfortunately it means nothing. It's like when you play a basketball game and you throw it behind you and you somehow blind hit it into the hoop, but you're already down like 9 points, so it doesn't really matter how cool it looked. You're still nothing changes, and yeah, no team is losing in this game yet, but yeah, it definitely negates the coolness of the moment for Hybrid Carry. Still cool though.
Yeah, we can see already the lead. The top side is extending 50 CS up for this Jax, about 1,500 gold. It will even out a little bit here as poor Invictus Recon that Bobby Cinder is going to deny the cannon away from him. Yeah, this is the issue with playing a tank into a carry player like Big Bald and Thick. He knows how to abuse these matchups really well, and his jungler is there to also make sure that this matchup is as abusable as possible.
Yeah, and we can see he's up here. The Orion has arrived, and it looks like a jungle, a support roam won't come in, but they are looking for Sleeping Giant. We'll take the Raptors away. This definitely interferes with Kindred's ability to sort of have, you know, that element of surprise that they like so much. Try and go, and, you know, use pathing that not other people would expect. Counter jungling against Kindred is a tool that not a lot of junglers, you know, think to do, because Kindreds are usually so active around the map, but once you actually do get vision of them, it can really help you out, as we can see the pings to roam down to the bot lane, making sure that Sleeping Giant can't get that bot gank off.
Yeah, potential 3v3 down here in the bottom side as Jake Corp4 is going to show himself back in lane. Sleeping Giant really wants to make something happen on this bottom side, as we see Hybrid Carry on this bottom side river, just grabbing that extra scuttle crowd, trying to provide as much vision as possible for these bottom laners. They really do not want to let something happen. But Big Bald and Thick is here to run the roam on Monster Penguin. The Shen ulti is there, but I do not think it is going to be enough. Tough Daddy will find that last hit. Nicely executed dive by Dorado Gaming Epsilon.
Yeah, good reaction time there from the Shen to try and save him, but it just doesn't matter. The damage from Jax is increasing by the moment, and Tough Daddy managing to pick up his first kill of the game. That's play.
It might not matter. Is going to get grabbed by Kindred ulti, but now potentially Big Bald and Thick in trouble, but maybe he's going to turn around on a Sleeping Giant, just deletes him away. Oh, Orion with a beautiful hook across the wall as well. The box won't find anything, but Big Bald and Thick wants to keep this happening. Jago Core has enough sustain, though. He'll be able to survive as Monster Penguin is teleported in. The Rift Herald will be dropped as well. Monster Penguin is going to get grabbed by the hook, grabbed by the char. Huge damage coming through from Dorado. They'll find that one. Poseidon is going to survive with a sliver of HP. J-Core Corey able to do nothing as this carry will fall in lane, and now it's poor Senna left alone in a 1 versus 4. Tough Daddy has 1 charge left on that Spirit Rush. The wave is being pushed in by the Drunk. They're looking to complete this dive. J-Core Corey doing his best to try and make something happen off of this. Grab a little bit more gold off of that support quest, but there is nothing to do. Tough Daddy will go on a rampage.
Yeah, and they did manage to get the shutdown there, but it is an overwhelmingly positive fight for DOGE as they masterfully dive the tower and manage to make the bot lane of DZG miss all these waves and force the Kindred over there to, you know, pick it up. But look at the warding in the bot lane from DOGE. So many wards, and once they recall, they'll surely be able to get this second dragon for them.
Yeah, the vision control from Dorado Gaming Epsilon has been excellent throughout this second game, and you can see it's going to cause a lot of issues for this Kindred, as, like you said, she likes the element of surprise. She likes to be able to come out of the jungle unexpected, grab a mark from somebody, and walk away with it. But I think as of right now, she's still stuck on 3 marks, waiting for that 4th one to get the range increase. So once she gets that point, she'll become a threat, but until then, she's able to be managed by this Dorado composition.
Yeah, you basically said it perfectly. As we can see, both junglers nearing the end of the line with both of their jungle pets. As we can see, 3 more required for Sleeping Giant to be able to get that upgrade. Meanwhile, the jungler for Dorado Gaming Epsilon Hybrid Carry, he's a little bit further behind with around 10 on that green pet. So it doesn't really look like it'll matter, as Dorado Gaming Epsilon will manage to pick up their second break here of the game. It will be a Cloud Dragon, as I'm very curious to see what the soul will be. If you look at the comp of Dorado Gaming Epsilon, they could definitely benefit from something like a Hex Tech with someone like Ari, someone like Aphelios, and someone like Jax. But no, that'll be the Chemtech Dragon. A repeat from last game will spell itself here in this game. Not sure how I feel about that. I feel like the only champion on Dorado Gaming Epsilon that really benefits from a Chemtech Dragon is that Jax here, but he is really fed, so who knows? Maybe it'll matter.
Yeah, it will be a really big issue if they can grab that soul for themselves, because this Jax with extra tenacity and extra healing power with the Divine Thunderer already in his pocket is gonna be a problem for this DZG composition, because as we look across the board, who really is going to be able to deal with this Jax? We can see that he's already building very anti-physical damage with those steel caps in inventory. Kindred and Senna are going to struggle to get through that health bar, and we'll have to see if Swain and Victor can do something, as the box is going to come down beside Gabe, forced to burn that Demon Flare, along with the Dawning Shadow, but the Drunk has the Wombo combo with the Infernum, as now we've got a potential gank coming mid lane. So Giant wants to make something happen on Tough Daddy. He's got that Spirit Rush. He's just holding on to it for as long as he wants to. Yeah, this Ari, so difficult to gank with just the kind of champion that she is. It feels like DZG are grasping at straws to try and make something happen.
Yeah, for sure. Just wins across the board here for Dorado Gaming Epsilon as they managed to pick up a kill onto Poseidon Gabe. I was going to mention, when you said who can deal with the Jax, it probably has to be the Swain, with just the amount of damage that he can pull off with that demonic form, and just the fact that he does a lot of magic damage, goes through the evasion, and things like that could really help. But yeah, he gets picked off there by the Drunk and by the Orion, so this Swain not in really a position to be that carry anymore. They're going to have to try and find another angle if they want to keep up in this game, because Dorado Gaming Epsilon, they're looking really good right now.
Yeah, and I think the top lane is a really big piece of that. We're focusing a lot on the top lane, as we should also mention Tough Daddy and the Drunk. Very fed right now, the Drunk, but they, I think, perfectly executed Aphelios' full combo there with the Infernum ulti and the Gale Force. Really nicely done, but people in chat are talking about it as well. The matchup in top lane has just been an issue for these past two games for DZG. You have Invictus Rakan, who wants to pick a tank, wants to pick a scaling matchup, but Big Bold and Thick seems comfortable in that sort of position. Outside of that Gwen game in game 1, and this Olaf and all this Jax, it's just been so difficult to deal with this carry style of player if you're not going to provide enough resources for Invictus Rakan in this early game.
Yeah, for sure. And I think really the only thing left for Dorado Gaming Epsilon to do to solidify this mid game for themselves and transition that into the late game is going to try and take this mid tower. And we can see the jungle mid duo of Dorado Gaming Epsilon are here trying to clear out wards, making sure that DZG don't feel comfortable in even their own jungle, just trying to sort of squeeze them out of the mid lane, as yeah, that mid lane tower really the last thing they need to do. And I would say they have this game in the bag, as yeah, Herald will be dropped.
Yep, you see they're going to drop that Herald in the mid lane, take that first tower. They're going to look to get the charge on the second one as well. Orion is going to find a beautiful Sleeping Giant. They're going to force that Kindred ulti out of him. The Shan ulti will be able to complete this time, as Sleeping Giant is forced to flash away as the ulti was coming down. Orion with a beautiful little predict there on the Kindred Hob. They don't manage to find any kills out of it, but a lot of important cooldowns are burned.
Yeah, most importantly, that Herald managed to get its charge on the second turret, so this will be another turret here for Dorado Gaming Epsilon. Damn me saying they need one turret. How about two turrets, as they are going to get so much vision and so much priority here around the map with just those two tower takes. And it really does look like Dorado Gaming Epsilon are speed rolling this game through, and DZG are just there and cannot do anything.
Yeah, we were talking about the potential for this being a scaling game, maybe like 30, 35 minutes. I feel like Dorado heard that and we're like, okay, speedrun challenge accepted. Let's see how fast we can make this one happen, as they're already up 6,000 gold for themselves as we get close to that 20-minute mark. This is a massive lead as the Jax has now won 2 items. I asked the question again, who can manage this Jax in a side lane?
At this point, he has that Blade of the Ruin King. He has those steel caps. I don't really think there is anyone who at this current moment can deal with him. I think if DZG want to be able to kill the Jax, it's either going to be because Big, Bald, and Thick really overstepped and will get picked off, which saying that, it already sounds really hard to do. So either that will somehow happen, or Swain will get an item spike later on in the game and they'll finally kill him, but it might not matter as Flash.
Yeah, they're looking for Poseidon there. They are going to manage to force the flash out of him. I really like the flank angles that Orion and Hybrid Carry are finding to make these ganks happen, as we see a flash force again out of the mid laner. Monster Penguin forced to run away. Invictus, a nice flash stun from Big, Bald, and Thick, and the fight is just going to start going in Dorado's favor farther and farther. The rest of DZG trying to retreat. Hybrid Carry looking to flash forward, but Tough Daddy is over the wall. The flash tower doesn't find it, but the Sejuani ult will. Huge CC combo down at the J Core. He's trying to escape now, trying to get away. Hybrid Carry will find the kill on the Mobster Penguin, and it's just the support and jungler from DZG managing to barely escape with their lives.
Yeah, the jungler is taken down really low here too. Sleeping Giant not able to contest anything at all here, and it will be the Baron, it looks like, for Dorado Gaming Epsilon. They shouldn't have any sort of contest, but we can see the pings coming here from DZG Olympus. They're looking to sort of even the score, but the TPs for the solo laners are available. If they walk in, it probably will spell death, as, yeah, you can see Orion is here. There's nothing they can do, but they're going to force it anyway.
Yeah, they'll take the Baron. That's pretty free. It looks like DZG potentially wanted to make something happen on that Chemtech Dragon, but yeah, there's just nothing to be found. I do want to point out PBS had a great little line in chat there. You've heard of Fasting Senna. This is Famine Senna. Because, yeah, she's just being starved in this game. She can't find resources. The soul stacking is delayed as much as it can possibly be, and it's not going to get much better from here.
Yeah, for sure. Soul point here for the side of Dorado Gaming Epsilon here. The Jax have to be feeling good at this point. Big, Bald, and Thick has been playing absolutely amazing here in this game, managing to completely outclass Invictus Rakan basically in every game except game 1, where he had a little bit of a struggle, but game 2 and 3 he really has been online. This Jax is spelling big problems just as much as the Olaf did in game 2 as they look to push it down. Big, Bald, and Thick is here in the bot lane with Tough Daddy. They're looking to side lane. I would expect that Dorado Gaming Epsilon has set up like maybe a 1-3-1 or maybe a 4-1 to try and optimally take these turrets, because this Jax can really push towers down with that W and with that passive.
Yeah, he's going to look to punish Invictus Rakan for stepping into this lane. I do want to ask, if we assumed that Dorado Gaming Epsilon are going to grab this game, we'll be able to finish it out with this Baron buff, as we see Big, Bold, and Thick almost getting the kill onto Rakan with that Grandmaster's Might. The rest of DZG going to rotate down here, though. Hang on, Jax will dash away, but Injured is going to try and follow up the Dawning Shadow there.
Oh, he turned away!
Yeah, communication, it was not there, so no kill able to be found. So again, I want to ask, if Dorado Gaming do clean up this game, and it does go to 2-1 in against DZG, as a DZG, how do you change up your compositions here? How do you try and make something happen going into this game 4? What do you have to change?
I think it doesn't necessarily have to do with draft changes as much as it does with playstyle changes. It clearly is that Big, Bald, and Thick is the problem when it comes to Dorado Gaming Epsilon, and has been really just crushing Invictus Rakan in these last 2 games. So if I'm DZG, I'm looking to maybe try and give the jungler a little bit more leeway to go for top ganks. The top lane has been relatively left alone for the side of DZG. Sleeping Giant hasn't really given Invictus Rakan a lot of attention in any of the games, and in the last 2 games it's really been the downfall of the team. So if I'm Sleeping Giant, I'm probably going to look to at least punish Big, Bald, and Thick in this game 4.
Oh, huge amount of burst on a J-Core core. He is just deleted before we can even finish saying his name. Yeah, this is just such a difficult game for Senna to be playing in, because unlike in the game 1 where you had a Tahm Kench, you had a Maokai, you have a starving Shen, and you have a Kindred. You don't really have the kinds of tanky frontliners that you want to be seeing when you have a hyperscaling AD carry like this. Sejuani, all Glacier Prison is going to go wide. A nice Moonlight Vigil from the Aphelios is going to find the root out to everybody. Tough Daddy is going to go unstoppable, and Invictus Rakan will survive with a sliver of HP, but will burn down to the Ignite. Big Balding pick.
Whoa!
And a 3-man stun in that Kindred ulti. They want to keep the fight going. He will finally get shut down, but I don't think it's really going to matter for DZG. Sleeping Giant, the last member alive, gonna try and flash to get back into his base. Maybe he'll be able to pick up the kill on the hybrid
Oh,
cannon.
the laser!
As he will get lasered down, but the Nexus turrets are still the target. Potentially, Sleeping Giant can make something happen here, can save the game. The hook is good, though, from the Orion. They'll pick that one up. It's an ace for Dorado Epsilon, and I think that's gotta be the game.
Well, it might not actually be the game here. We can see that the mid laner is going to be up in just a couple of seconds here. Nexus is being burned down, but he doesn't have the Chaos Storm available.
Yep,
yeah, he's just getting CC'd.
CC'd down. The Mercury Treads do not matter. Dorado Gaming Epsilon are going to take us to match point.
Yeah, Dorado Gaming Epsilon, basically the exact same story here as Game 2, just managing around their lanes perfectly. Had a little bit of a bump, I want to say. It went from like a hill in Game 1 where they had a bit of difficulty in that early game to like a small, tiny little road bump. But for the most part, just a clean game from Dorado Gaming Epsilon, managing to pull ahead, managing to pull through, winning basically every lane, managing to win that jungle. And despite us saying that DZG had arguably a better draft, I think Dorado Gaming Epsilon, they had a way better game, and they came to this game way more prepared.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about Big Balls and Thick in the top side, but I also want to give our respect to Tough Daddy. 5-0-18, 13 KDA, fully stacked Darkseal, deathless on this game 3. Looked really good on this Ahri performance, and if the DZG can't find a way to manage these solo lanes from Dorado, I think it's going to be a clean 3-1.
Yeah, it definitely seems like DZG Olympus just need an answer to getting through, Big, Bald, and Thick, because he really has been just the bane of their existence in this series so far. So while they focus on that, while they discuss what they're going to do to try and stay alive, we are going to go to a short break here. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back as we head to match point for the semifinals.
Like a bomb squad. I'm addicted to your love. I'm addicted to your love. Like a bomb squad.
Welcome back, everybody, to our coverage of the APL semifinals. I'm still What Birdie. This is still Quacks, and we are here for Game 4 of Dorado Gaming Epsilon versus Dread Zone Gaming Olympus. It's been a pretty tight series, but Dorado Gaming Epsilon now sit on match point after a fairly satisfying and succinct win in that last game. We'll have to see if they can close out our series 3-1 here, or if DZG can take us to Game 5.
Yeah, Dorado Gaming, they have to be feeling really good after that Game 3. They had a very convincing win over DZG, but on the other side, DZG, they need to be looking about what they can do to change not only their draft, but also their playstyle, because clearly this whole bot lane, play for jungle, play for bot lane, play for, early game dragons that they have been sort of going about in this series has not been working. The top lane has slowly been suffering as, yeah, big, bald, and thick. We've mentioned him a lot, but he has basically been the bane of their existence. He has managed to completely destroy Invictus Recon in games 2 and 3. So I'm very curious to see how DZG respond, not just in bans, but also around their jungler, making sure that Hybrid Carrier can, maybe visit that top lane once in a while, because for the most part, the top lane has been basically 1v1 the whole entire series.
Yeah, and it's kind of a sleeping monster in the other part of the map. Tough Daddy in mid lane, despite us not talking about him very much and the spotlight really being on this top lane and bot lane, and even for DZG the jungle, he's looked very, very good on these Ahri lanes, and both of the counters that DZG have drafted into it, being the Victor and the Vigar, really haven't managed to work out in terms of actual gameplay. They haven't managed to find any sort of significant leads or outscale the Ahri in the mid and late game. The Spirit Rush and the amount of combo that the Charm brings has just managed to be too much for DZG. So it's a lot of questions that DZG have to answer going into this game 4. And if they can bring us to game 5. But if not, it'll be Dorado Gaming Epsilon moving on.
Yeah, for sure. And I bet Dorado Gaming Epsilon kind of are feeling themselves here in this game. A lot of teams often get, sort of the we're very close to winning. So they kind of get, that feeling where they feel like they can just go for a lot of these plays that they might not be able to go for or extend, even when they might not be able to. So I definitely think DOGE have to be on the lookout for sort of getting overhyped and getting that mentality of just being able to think that they are stronger than they actually are. So we're going to keep waiting here on draft as actually, no, we are going to start the draft here as it begins. DOGE here on blue side, while DZG opting to go for the red side. And the immediate Jarvan ban here from DOGE, followed up by the Gragas ban. DZG continuing to make sure that that pick cannot be played by DOGE, denying that flex pick once again.
Yeah, so far, after game 1, the bans have not changed. It has been Jarvan Cassio and Graves versus the Gragas and Gangplank and the Sejuani. Although in game 3, they did swap up and take away the Olaf as they realized that that was a fairly large problem. But DZG actually changing the script up a little bit. They don't want to let the Orion have Thresh this game, so they're going to ban that one away, which means that the top lane is free pickings for Dorado Gaming if they want to just slam something like an Olaf or something like the Jax that we saw last game.
Yeah, not a ton of top lane bans against DOGE here. They could rewind and go back to the Olaf. They could rewind and go back to the Jax, but no, it looks like it'll be the Sejuani locked in for DOGE, getting that jungler in first as Hybrid Carry able to get his hands on the pick that he had last game, securing sort of that comfort pick for himself, as he is very comfortable on Sejuani. But again, the tools and utility that Sejuani provides, a really good first pick for them on this side. Curious to see how DZG will respond.
Yeah, I do also think it's an important pick for the kind of top laner that Big Baldwin Thick wants to play. He likes these melee hyper carries. He's like these people like Olaf and like Jax. People who can apply that Sejuani passive very, very nicely. And DZG not letting the jungler slip through to the second ban phase this time around are going to grab the Wukong for themselves. I think arguably one of the strongest junglers on the patch recently.
Yeah, Wukong with his Black Cleaver is able to take down tanks like Sejuani, so a good response to Sejuani on the side of DZG, but this isn't really one of Sleeping Giants' biggest comfort picks here. He's more used to play champions like the Graves that got banned, like the Kindred from last game, like the Viego that he managed to play earlier in this series, so I'm curious to see how comfortable he is here on the Wukong, as joining him on the second pick for red side, R2, Jinx for DZG, as the Sidon is Gabe, will again be able to get his hands on that Jinx.
Yeah, this is a kind of a switch up for DZG. We've been seeing them play these Senna style lanes where they have something a little bit outside the box with their support matchup. And yeah, that Olaf made it through the first ban phase, so Dorado Gaming are just going to slam that one, and I can't say I'm too surprised. It looked very comfortable for Big Bald and Thick in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, now the question becomes, how are DZG going to play around this Olaf? They clearly can't just let him roll over Invictus Recon like they did in Game 2. They need the mid to roam. They need a support roam. They need something to make sure that Big, Bald, and Thick can be set behind at some point in this game. So I'm curious to see how the rest of the pick and ban phase is going to continue, as we have an Aphelios locked in by the insta-lock Malphite for DZG. Going up against that Olaf will be the Rock.
Yeah, I can't say I'm too surprised. We saw it get banned away in Game 3 just to make sure that the Jax had a safe enough laning phase, and Malphite is incredibly strong right now. So seeing him get picked up for DZG is not too surprising. They finally have a top laner, I think, with a little bit more agency and a little bit more playmaking potential once they get that level 6. And DZG are finally going to put some respect on the Tough Daddy Ahri in the mid lane and take that one away as well.
Yeah, like you said, putting respect on Tough Daddy Ahri, making sure that he can't get his hands on that hyper mobile mage after 6 and just banning away that Ahri. I wouldn't be too surprised if they try and ban something away from him again, make this a double mid lane ban. Maybe we'll see something like the Vigar. Maybe we'll even see something like a Silas or a Victor on the side of DZG, as there is a recon ban.
Yeah, there's a thought to another support ban as well. Neither side has picked up their supports, but Aphelios, his two best pairings are with Thresh and are with Lulu. And the Thresh is already banned away, so I wouldn't be incredibly surprised if DZG wanted to take that one away. It's not a playmaking champion for the Orion, so maybe they do just continue to focus down that mid lane, take away a good Sejuani pairing like that Aurelia. No, they're actually going to ban away the Braum. They are going to look to take down that support pool a little bit.
Yeah, they're just trying to sort of, mitigate the amount of CC that DOGE can draft for themselves, because concussive blows on top of the team that DOGE have already propped for themselves. You have the Glacial E from Sejuani, and combine that with a Braum passive, you're never moving anytime soon. So a decent ban.
Yeah, I do like that one. It denies the triple Freljord threat from Dorado Gaming Epsilon as well. You don't let Olaf, Sejuani, and Braum all stick together. In fact, if it was Ashe instead of Aphelios, we would already be seeing a lot of issues. But DCG are going to lock in the Nautilus for themselves. I do think this is a good matchup into Aphelios, as well as being a good pick away, as Nautilus can provide a huge amount of peel for the Aphelios and make sure that he's able to play team fights safely, deny a lot of the engage from Wukong, and even a lot of the follow-up from Malphite. But yeah, we talked about it. Lulu was up and available, and she's going to get locked in.
Yeah, good predict from you there, Brady, as the Lulu is locked in, and it looks like the mid lane for DZG, Mobster Penguin, will get his counter pick in this game. So I'm curious to see what DOGE are going to put on Tough Daddy, as he is forced to blind pick the mid lane champion here. Could see something maybe like a Victor, any sort of safe blind pick we could see. But yeah, as we just wait for the timer to sort of roll down here, DOGE taking their time, thinking about it very clearly, or carefully, as we do see the Syndra lock in for DOGE, providing that magic damage that they need here in this game, and that execute later on. Syndra's a good pick here, along with setup and engage and late game insurance, with that ult execute going off later on in the game. It's a good pick for DOGE.
Yeah, and this is something that DZG has banned away before. Games 1 and 2, second round, Syndra got banned away, and it was allowed. The Ahri was allowed through instead, so this time around we're seeing the reverse. The Ahri is going to be banned away, and Syndra will be picked up as the Aurelian Soul is going to be the mid lane counter here. Again, after the domination of Aurelian Soul in the meta, it feels so weird to see him slip through to an R5 pick. But he is a lot tamer now. He's a lot less strong than he used to be. So we'll have to see if Monster Penguin can do something with him. But I look at this DZG comp and I'm a little worried about early game agency outside of that Nautilus.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at DZG's comp, and if they don't manage to get Poseidon as Gabe ahead in this early game, make sure that that Jinx is fed up and ready to go once the turrets start to break, once the Dragon starts to get to Soul Point. If this Jinx isn't ready, this could be really detrimental for DZG, because you look at the side of DOGE, they have a lot, and I mean a lot of CC on their hands. Just looking at their top side alone is enough to scare anyone, but things like the polymorph can really start to hurt this Jinx. So DCG have to be careful when making sure that Poseidon can get ahead, that, they get him ahead enough to the point where he won't just get completely CC'd and bursted down in that late game.
Yeah, I don't know how much LS you watch or anybody watches here recently. But he's always said something about where to pick Olaf and how. And if you have an enchanter behind it, Olaf suddenly becomes one of the best champions in the game. And I'm looking at this Dorado Gaming Epsilon composition, and not only am I seeing the top jungle duo of Olaf Sejuani, which on its own is incredibly strong, but there's a Lulu behind them as well. And
Mhm.
I, as a support player, have my own personal gripes about that champion, about polymorph in general, and just being a really unfun ability to play against. So I think this is I almost want to call it an Exodia comp for Dorado Gaming Epsilon. You play through your top lane, you let Aphelios Lulu scale into their mid and late game. Like, Jinx is going to scale up as well, but what will Jinx do in the face of a fed Olaf? If you can get him ahead, like we saw in game 2, the game just really ends.
Yeah, any sort of engage from the side of DOGE really just ruins the side of DZG, as both teams are looking to, sort of have that engage comp. DOGE with a little bit more pick potential than DZG, I would like to add, with things like the Scatter the Weak, and hell, even the Olaf axe, being able to just chain slow the person, really lock them down, can really affect DZG. But both teams drafting sort of similar styles here in this game, but the difference maker really will be that wild growth and who sort of gets the jump on who first, because an unstoppable force followed by an Olaf with Ragnarok and a wild growth on him, both teams look to be pretty dangerous. But I do agree with you in saying that DOGE definitely have what you would call an Exodia comp.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can execute on that Exodia comp as we wait to load in to Game 4. We'll see if Dorado Gaming Epsilon can lock themselves a finals ticket, or DZG can take us to Silver Scrapes. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back when we load on Summoner's Rift for Game 4.
To my voice and hear the call within. Embrace the fear inside. Surrender your mind to mine again.
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's coverage of the APL as we have a miniature pause loading into game. It seems like Mobster Penguin had some issues loading in, but we can just, while we're here in Game 4 of DZG versus Dorado Gaming Epsilon, we can take a look at the runes and the summoner spells and the decisions that everyone has made as we look for this level 1.
Yeah, you'll notice we see the ghost here from Big Bald and Thick as he's looking to sort of get aggressive in this lane. Like he did in game 2, he sort of continue the train that he never really stopped in that game and just sort of continue it here against Invictus Rakan here in game 4 to hopefully close out this game because, yeah, they're on game point. Dorado Gaming Epsilon here just need one more game and the game is completely over. And they have drafted themselves, as we said, an Exodia comp. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they'll play this game out and how their spirits are after that win.
Yeah, we've got some interesting level 1 decisions being made here by both teams. It seems like both sides have a different read on what the level 1 is going to be as the DZG. It's their bottom side invade. They'll have full information on this red buff, but it looks like the rest of Dorado Gaming Epsilon actually are going to start looking towards the top side.
Yup, and both teams crucially getting information on those buffs on the opposite side of the map. It looks like the Sejuani will be able to get that ward off on the red buff of Sleeping Giant, but it looks like the red team DZG are staying here. They might be looking for a fight. It's a 3v4.
Oh, no one's showed yet. Sleeping Giant is going to start the buff. They'll finally be spotted. Looks like the hook is coming through onto Hybrid Carry. They're looking for the damage. Monster Penguin is getting blocked up by the red buff, though. Sleeping Giant taking a lot of damage. Hybrid Carry forced to flash away. J44 doesn't have the damage to finish it off, so they're going to get turned onto Tough Daddy. Try and get the damage. J44 is going to go to the Lulu. The Orion finding the kill there. Now J44 forced to flash, forced to run away as Tough Daddy is getting very low. The hope will not find him. Tough Daddy surviving the AoE of that Jinx Rocket ever so slightly, barely. But it's a winning level 1 for Dorado Gaming Epsilon, and that is very concerning.
Yeah, Dorado Gaming Epsilon starting this game out strong as it looks like Hybrid Carry is just looking to get his level 2, but Mobster Penguin here to interrupt his, time with the chickens, but won't be able to continue that as both junglers starting this game out very low. Sleeping Giant really low, taking on this buff was taken to like 1/5, 1/6 HP there, so that will definitely stagnate his ability to get onto the lanes. Along with that, he doesn't have a flash here, so Sleeping Giant in a really compromising position here early on in the game.
Yeah, how these junglers recover, really, I think is how we're going to call this early laning phase, as that level 1 ended up being pretty disastrous for DZG. They weren't able to find that first blood that they were looking for, as we just see Olaf doing Olaf things in top lane again. I do actually want to point out, if we can look at Big Bald and Thick's rune choice here, alongside that Conqueror, he has two pretty interesting choices in that secondary. He's got the Approach Velocity and the Biscuits. The Approach Velocity making it so if he hits that axe, it's a guaranteed follow-up, and the Biscuits just meaning he has enough mana sustain to throw out those axes in the early laning phase.
Yeah, for sure. Approach Velocity is one of the runes that really no one takes, and I feel like Olaf is one of the only exclusive users of a rune like that, so it is nice to see him pick that up here in this game. As we can see the Wukong, he's on the red buff, and the crabs have officially spawned, but only 3 camps taken here for Hybrid Carry as he's going up to the top lane. I can totally see junglers maybe fighting for this, but you have to keep in mind Hybrid Carry, he does have that Ruby Crystal, has that little bit of extra health, and most importantly, he does have that top lane priority. Big Bald is not someone you want to mess with here early on in this game. He's still an Olaf.
Yeah, it's still Olaf, and he's still very, very scary in this early game. We're seeing Invictus Rakan already at this point not getting first blood. Huge win for DZG overall. We are seeing the CS lead start to advance for this Olaf, and that's feeling very reminiscent of this game 2. We'll have to see if Big Bald and Thick can have a repeat performance going into game 4. We'll see if he can start to carry the game for his team, but we're already seeing a pretty sizable gold lead for Dorado Gaming in this early game.
Yeah, and we can see Hybrid Carry managed to pick up that top crab, and he could very well go to that bot crab. His bot lane does have priority, but we can see Sleeping Giant opting to do the same thing, and I think Hybrid Carry knows that, so he's just going to opt back into his Grump as
Hang on, they're looking for engage on the bottom lane. J44 is going to get it in. The Polymorph is going to deny a lot of the damage from beside his game. The Exhaust and the heal also burn the Drunk with the Lethal Tempo stack, trying to get these autos in. J44 is still stepping forward. Jinx is going to ding level 4, but there's not going to be any kills given over. It is just a flash lost by the Drunk. Nice hook from J-Core Core is going to force that cooldown out. Yeah, I do also want to point out, interestingly enough, Poseidon is Gabe opted for the fleet footwork here as opposed to the lethal tempo. So as they continue to take trades like this, it's going to be worse for Poseidon's game in the short term, but better in the long term.
Yeah, for sure, and that is a crucial flash dropped out by the Drunk, as Sleeping Giant probably will be looking for ganks there on that bot lane, as last game it was a lot more difficult to gank that Aphelios because you did have the Thresh Lantern, but in this game, the Lulu definitely hinders more, or it doesn't hinder, but definitely assists more in that, you know, sort of a late game hyper carry team fight that Aphelios loves to do with his weapons and with his ultimate, whereas Thresh is more, you know, early game safety, early game in laning phase, trying to get him ahead. So the supports have very distinct ways of making sure Aphelios can, you know, get ahead in the game, but I definitely think one way, that being the Lulu way, is easier to gank against.
Yeah, but you see Invictus Rakan TPing back up to top side. He does have the Bomby Cinder in inventory, so he should be able to manage the waves a little bit nicer. Hopefully able to keep this lane a little bit more under control as opposed to the laning phases that we've seen in the past couple of games. We want to see a repeat performance of game 1, not of 2 and 3, as Big Bald and Thick getting, yeah, again, half trades into Invictus Rakan, but it is Malphite, so he's got the extra shield and he's got a bit more longevity in this laning phase as opposed to the Shen or to the Maokai that we've seen.
Yeah, we can see Big Bald and, God, I keep forgetting the last part of the name. Big Bald and
He's
right in front of my face. Big
on
Bald.
the
Okay.
bottom lane. The Jinx traps are good. They're going to find 2, but J-Core Core was forced to flash away. I like the aggression that J-Core Core is showing. They're looking to try and make something happen, but hybrid carry with a nice punish.
Yeah, for sure, and you know, the bot lane getting a lot of attention here in this game so far, as Sleeping Giant was looking for a gank early on there, but it looks like this will just be a dragon for the side of DOGE as they look to get what looks to be a Cloud Dragon. Sorry, the thing is a bit buggy there on the top left corner for us as observers. It basically just shows up lagging. Oh no, that's a Chemtech Dragon. Yeah. Yeah, so that will be the Chemtech.
Thank you, small indie company, for not having your icons updated for however long Chemtech Dragon has been in the game now. Even though it got removed, it took so long with Hextech Dragon, they'll probably take the same amount of time with Chemtech. But either way, Chemtech Dragon was taken by Dorado Gaming. It'll be a nice little bit of tenacity and shield power in the early game, and especially for a champion like Lulu, we'll absolutely love to see that.
Yeah, for sure, and it looks like both teams just sort of chilling for this laning phase. This is definitely a calmer game than we've seen, but as I say that, a huge trade here in the top lane. Big Bald and Thick, who might be looking for it, but will not actually go to try and finish off Invictus Rakan, as he knows he has that unstoppable force, and even though it might not be able to knock him up in time for that Ragnarok, it still does damage.
For Core, missing that hook is going to take a little bit of punish for it. But yeah, like you said, the top lane is really just whoever fires off their ulti first is probably going to be less happy in the trade, as if Invictus Rakan uses it to try and make a trade happen. As hang on, Sleeping Giant.
Ooh, Sleeping Giant.
Yeah, but the bottom lane has priority here. The Drunk has that red and white, and that means do not fight. Hybrid carry trying to get the chase down. Trying to get on top of Sleeping Giant, who's forced to flash away. He's going to blast over the wall, and yeah, this is what happens when your bottom lane doesn't have priority. Testing scuttle crabs like these is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, Invictus Giant really wanted that crab. I know the feeling as a jungler before for greeting for that crab really hard, but ultimately it takes a large chunk out of his health here as he's forced to just go back to his camps and, you know, sort of take them, as, you know, mid lane looks ridiculously gankable right now, but unfortunately he just doesn't have the health bar to be able to pull it off, and neither does Mobster Penguin, as he is going to reset, try and get that mana back up, but it is going to be a TP burned out from him in this game, as, yeah, it just looks like it's a pretty tame game from here, as both teams looking for small advantages, looking for kills, but neither of them really being able to find them.
Yeah, and if this game continues to scale on in this regard, I have to give the advantage to Dorado. We've seen how they execute in the early to mid game, and we see how well that they've been able to play over the course of this past couple games in this series. Big Bald and Thick and Tough Daddy especially making some standout plays as the solo laners here. We really need someone on DZG to step up if they're going to take it to game 5.
Yeah, for sure. Ooh, the Hex Flash going in for Core trying to get the Orion, but will not find it. That Hex Flash is really crucially going to be used here in this laning phase. Core should really be looking to spam that, trying to get these hooks, trying to get this damage onto the bot lane of I keep blanking on names. It's been a long night, guys. As of Dorado Gaming Epsilon, as we see a Herald being taken here from Hybrid Carry, looking to get this. Will be spotted out by Sleeping Giant, but that's a Nautilus.
And the knock up in the mid lane. They find the Starfall as well. Monster Penguin will find that one. The Jinx Rocket is just going to go a little bit wide. BBS doing a little bit of trolling as the Dorado trade continues. Poseidon is game trying to escape, but this is Purple Gatafelio, so you don't exactly get to walk away. The drums
No, sir.
Now Sleeping Giant trying to make something happen on the top side, but Big Bold and Thick has found him. Has the Ghost on. There's the Sejuani ulti as well. The Unstoppable Force going to be used to get out of there as opposed to going in. So across the map, it's Dorado Gaming finding leads.
Yeah, Dorado Gaming just slowly finding leads here in the bot lane. A crucial solo kill there for the Drunk onto Poseidon is Gabe. Poseidon is Gabe has not really been able to play out the series here. We haven't highlighted him a lot as the player, and that's just simply because he hasn't been able to really play the game that much in this series, as the Drunk and the Orion have always been on him. He hasn't really had a chance to, you know, sort of shine on any of these picks, so a little bit unfortunate for him here, as it looks like the mid lane is also a heavy bit of contention, as Monster Penguin really looking for any sort of advantages he can here. This Aurelion Soul really does scale well, could outscale this Syndra, but it really does depend on Sleeping Giant being able to give him the attention he needs, and Monster Penguin being able to take the advantages that he might be given.
Yeah, Aurelion Soul does feel also kind of bad to play into the Syndra, as when you stand still and start pressing your Breath of Light button, she gets a really easy stun, and that can lead to a lot more damage if she has the items. And speaking of items, for I think the third or the fourth game in a row, Tough Daddy has gone for the Leandry's Torment as of that mythic item, where normally, especially on champions like Aura, you would see other items like the Everfrost, maybe even the Ludens, but Tough Daddy opting for the Leandry's, I think, is actually a pretty interesting decision-making.
Yeah, the Ludens is definitely good against HP stackers, and I feel like DOGE definitely have a lot, or not DOGE, DZG have a lot more of those here in this game. Even Aurelion Soul going to build that ROA, has that ROA actually here in his inventory, which does give him a fairly decent bit of health. Combine that with the Wukong, the Malphite, and even...
There's unstoppable.
No.
Hang on, Olaf doesn't have Flash, so he's going to be forced to walk through the tower. He takes about half his HP. The Monster Penguin will survive. That is the disadvantage of the Ghost over the Flash. That Sleeping Giant is still here, looking for a potential punish onto Tough Daddy, as Monster Penguin is going to stick around to see if they can make something happen. Sleeping Giant isn't base. He's got the flash forward, but the flash forward from Syndra, the Royal Healing is going to be enough to keep Monster Penguin. Oh, he will go down to the excess Syndra damage. In the meantime, on the bottom side, the damage on this Velios is so massive with the green and white guns, but now he's taking up the tower. Core with the Ignite will pick that one up. The Hybrid Carry making things happen on the map. Overall, it's a win, I would say, for Dorado again.
Yeah, Dorado just continuing to find trades across the map in their favor here. They managed to get a kill onto Tough Daddy, and crucially, they managed to burn his ultimate, so wouldn't be surprised if Sleeping Giant maybe looks to repeat gank, as he still does have a fair and decent amount of health and mana here, and he does have that Sheen and that Warhammer active for him, and his bot side is up, so maybe as soon as Tough Daddy, you know, gets back into lane, he could be met with a monkey and a dragon.
That was happened as we did. The first tower of the game did go down in that top side. Big Bald and Thick managing to find that one after some top lane shenanigans. Yeah, as per usual, I think in this series, Big Bald and Thick has found himself a lead, and if we just check the gold really quick, as he's got that fully completed Ravenous Hydra in inventory, and is about, what is that, 40 CS up? 45 CS up? Yeah, he's almost doubling Invictus Rakon's gold.
Yeah, that's just a little bit of what we like to call in the hood a top gapper. I'm sure, you know, Big Bald and Thick would call it that as well. As, yeah, Invictus has really been struggling to find avenues into not just this game, but this series, as Core looking for a little bit of shenanigans here, looking for a hook, but will not find anything as both teams are roaming over to mid. But crucially, it looks like the blue team, DOGE, they have vision of where everyone is. They know where the members of DZG are, and DZG don't necessarily have that same information on the map. So if a fight were to break out at this current time, it would probably be DOGE favored.
Yeah. We check in on the Cinder stats real quickly. She's on a nice amount of stacks for herself with 69 at the 15-minute mark. That's pretty good. Yeah, I know. I'm really hilarious with the comedy. Olympus also does have that Sky's Descent. He's been picking up plenty of the star shards for himself. We'll have to see if he can make use out of that first really big ulti, make something happen on the map. Maybe he's starting to get shutdown gold either on this Olaf or on the Lulu, of all things. If we can see DZG make a play happen, but I want to see them get aggressive somewhere. You have a Nautilus bottom lane. You have a Wukong. Make something happen into the Sevelius. They don't have the highest amount of heal.
Yeah, for sure. And we can see Mobster just looking to cancel the recall, but both junglers are here. Wukong does not yet have that Black Cleaver completed, so taking down Hybrid Carry will be a really difficult task, especially when Tough Daddy does...
Looking for the hook in. This is a Red Gun of Felios. Again, trades that you don't really want to be taking before Sleeping Giant is nearby.
Yeah, and the members of DOGE have really completed all of their mythics, whereas the DZG members hang on, hold that thought.
Looking again, the exhaust is down onto Poseidon. There's the Sejuani ulti getting plenty of CC, and Jacob will fall, but Sleeping Giant is now here, looking for the follow-up. A really nice Wild Growth to deny out that first charge of the ulti. Monster Penguin was going to start falling in, but it immediately cancels it as now Big Bald and Thick is nearby and getting kills. The Sky's Descent will not have a ton of value. It will hit everybody, but there's no kills to be given over. It's just Dorado Epsilon on the map with 3 clean kills.
Yeah, Dorado Epsilon again managing to pull ahead. They have the mythic items on basically all of their carries here, or they have those, first item components on all of the champions. And so those item advantages really starting to shine through as it just doesn't look like they're able to do anything on the side of DZG. They don't have enough damage as this might not be the end of it. Big Ball.
He's just chasing down the Jinx who has no man.
Oh my god.
To believe it. Malphite can do nothing but watch his AD carry die. This poor Jinx, we talk about it every time Jinx is drafted. You need to have a composition that can peel for your Jinx and keep her alive, and DZG don't have the best one for it outside of really the Nautilus.
Yeah, for sure, and it just looks like DOGE are super ahead here in this game. Nerves are catching up to DZG as they are starting to fall behind here in this game. Crucially, their ADC is 0 and 3, jungler 0 and 2, and so the damage is not there as Big Bald and Thick is just chasing him.
He's got the ulti, but I don't know if that's exactly the point you want to call for it. Shutdown goal will go over the Sleeping Giant. I know Aurelion Sol got nerfed, but he does still have, the Breath of Light. You kind of have to respect the amount of damage that champion can put out.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe a little bit of a miscommunication there from DZG, as not sure that's the player you want the shutdown to go to, but DZG going to importantly transition that pick onto the top laner of DOGE into a dragon, their first one of the game, denying that soul point. But on the other side of the map, DOGE doing it again, looking for avenues into the game elsewhere, looking to get that second Herald, pick that up and put it in a side lane. As you look at the turrets for DZG, and they're all ridiculously vulnerable as the tier 1 turrets on all the lanes have been taken. And so a turret take here could very easily transition into a base break if the game state permits it.
Yeah, and speaking of taking turrets, it looks like DZG will manage to find some objective gold for themselves, pick up a little bit of extra money in their pockets off of the dragon and off of that outer tower. Start to get Jinx back into this game. She's only down about 700 gold, so it's not impossible, but it just it feels like a really difficult game to play when you're staring into the face of Sejuani, Olaf, and Syndra just locking you down.
Yeah, for sure, and we can see DOGE just looking to get vision on the top side of the map of DZG's jungle, as we can see vision in that bush there, as, Penguin will be spotted out, has to move there or else he might get engaged on, but that bush is also warded, my friend, as Penguin might be in trouble here.
Yeah, the Orion playing the aggressive Lulu, nice poly into the stun, there's just nowhere for him to go. Tough Daddy will go on a killing spree the rest of DZG, trying to make some sort of follow-up happen, but they just don't have the numbers or the resources, and it's just another winning map play for Dorado Gaming Epsilon. They're playing the macro excellent.
Yeah, Dorado Gaming Epsilon, they're going to place that Herald. This could be a base break as the Herald is walking forward. The wave will meet just barely shy of the range of the turret, but that will not matter as it gets another charge. Invictus Recon is not here on the bot lane. They only have 3 members strong against the 4 of DOGE. The base is broken here. DOGE just looking for wins and finding them across the map as they could very easily set their sights here on the Baron as they're looking to go back into the jungle, obscured in darkness for DZG.
Yeah, the real problem is if you are Invictus Recon, you can't leave Olaf alone in the side lane because he will just take a tower. And speaking of Olaf, he's going to pop that ghost and just start walking himself away as there are 4 members of DZG nearby, but he doesn't care. He's a 2-item Olaf. But yeah, how do you leave this Olaf alone in the side lane as the Super Mega Death Rocket used to get vision of the Baron pit, make sure that the rest of DOGE are not taking it. But yeah, you can't leave Olaf alone. You can't let him just whack on towers for free, but you still want to be useful to your team and get that ulti off, so how do you manage to make that happen?
Yeah, Invictus Recon definitely caught in a pickle here as he kind of has to decide between, you know, denying Olaf sort of that split push that we all saw ruined DZG there in game 2, or grouping with his team, making sure that he can, you know, maybe try and get an ultimate off, but at the cost of leaving that Olaf alone to just sort of reap the rewards of getting all those minions in his side lane. As I want to point out the CS discrepancy here in the top lane, just looking at it, and you can see 193 to 122. This top lane CS difference is absolutely massive in this game.
Yeah, I think you kind of just have to leave Monster Penguin in the side lane to try and wave clear against the Olaf, as Aurelion Sol's wave clear is very non-interactive, as, hang on, they're going to try and get an engage on the Olaf here, but he does have the Ragnarok, so yeah, he's just going to walk away. It's an important cooldown to burn, but I don't know if it's really the engager we're looking for. There was a potential for Olaf to just turn around and kill them both.
Yeah, for sure, but it looks like Big Bald and Thick, he didn't have a lot of mana, so maybe not able to put that fight where he wants it to be. If he had more mana, maybe it would have been a different story, but again, DOGE just returning to normal, pressuring the lanes, putting their bot lane in the mid lane to make sure that DZG can respond or else they break their turret, and we can see Tough Daddy just in that bot lane, making sure Invictus Recon can't even have an avenue to TP to potentially help his team for a surprise engages. Yeah, that unstoppable force is really the only reliable source of engage for the side of DZG, as you can do the Cyclone, but chances are you're going to have to W if you're Sleeping Giant in order to get a good Cyclone off, and if you use your W too early against this comp at this point, you're just dead to it.
J4 Core is going to get engaged on here by Hybrid Carry, but it is tank-on-tank violence, so there isn't going to be much happening here. So
Whoa!
Prison as well. They're really trying to make this engage happen onto the Nautilus, but I don't know if that's exactly where you want to be. That's a fairly important cooldown. Burned in the Dragon coming up in about 15 seconds. They won't have that Sejuani ulti, which is really the source of engage for Dorado. So either they're very confident that DZG has no way to walk into this pit, or that was a really big misstep.
Yeah, and we can see the side of DOGE roaming around the map, maybe looking to get control of this mid lane, but both teams meeting in this mid lane.
Oh, a nice stun from Tough Daddy. They'll find Sleeping Giant. They'll be able to lock him down eventually. They fall to picking that one up. The Aphelios ulti is huge! The Moonlight Vigil doing so much damage. But the Soul ulti is really good. Tough Daddy gets picked up. Shut down Gold over to Monster Penguin. But now the Orion looking to get aggressive alongside the Drunk. I keep wanting to call him the Dawn, but that's a different mobster, as Monster Penguin was able to pick up Shutdown Gold. It was just a 1-for-1 overall, but it was the jungle of DZG that got picked up, so it will be the Dorado Epsilon picking up the Dragon for themselves, unless DZG want to make something happen. J-Core looking to engage onto the Olaf. The Polymorph not going to do very much. The Dragon's still going down.
He has Red White.
Yeah, it's down to UK. I don't think anyone can come in to try and smite it. Jinx Rocket was close. But no cigar, just like Graves, not managing to find that dragon.
Hey man, he got his cigar back eventually. They had to make a... Oh, don't pull that down. Hold my joke.
And Thick, a little bit too aggressive there. Sleeping Giant is going to find his second kill of the game. And as much as I appreciate DZG picking up these kills, Jinx still has none, and this is so depressing to look at.
Yeah, for sure. That definitely has to feel bad for the Jinx Zero. And so far here in this game, not able to pick up a single kill, but I think it is important to note that Mobster Penguin has been picking up a couple of kills in these last few minutes of the game. This Aurelion Sol is slowly but surely going into this game, scaling into this game, and so DOGE, they have to be careful when approaching these types of team fights to make sure that he is the one targeted, because I mean, you just saw it here on the icon, you just saw it on your screen. He now has access to the Sky's Descent, the full 100% maxed out ultimate here for Aurelion Sol is available for the next team fight.
Yeah, and Syndra as well, as we're doing a stack check, and she was on, I believe it was 102 right now, which means that she does have the execute on that ultimate ability. In about 18 more stacks, she will have that increased ability power. And I love, love, love seeing Tough Daddy go for the Rabadon second here. You are the main magic damage source. You really are the only magic damage source for your team, as we've got a fight in the top side here. A nice stun from Tough Daddy, doing plenty of damage to Mobster Penguin. He's got the right healing, but that is a lot of burst, and that's the Rabadons putting in work right there, because Monster Penguin can't afford to go for anything other than damage boots in this game. So if they take a straight up one versus one trade, Tough Daddy should win it out almost every time.
Yeah, I mean, Tough Daddy, like you said, he has access to that execute now, and most importantly, you know, Penguin does not have access to any sort of magic resist here in this game, as the Rod of Ages could provide a little bit of health. Same goes for that Rylai's that he has managed to pick up, but that is just nothing compared to the strength that the Syndra is able to put forth with all of that ability power that she has with that Rabadons, with that Liandry's burn all coming through, and most importantly, with those Sork shoes. So even if you did have resistances, they would be completely obsolete.
Yeah, I also think Tough Daddy with the Fiendish Codex in his pocket is either going to be going for the Zhonya's, which I would be a little surprised by, or the Cosmic Drive, which I think would actually be a pretty interesting pickup here for him. The extra movement speed, you'd be providing a lot of value, along with it just being a 90 ability power item. It's got good value on it, and combined with the Syndra passive and the Rabadons, it will bring a lot, as DZG are going to start to try and
this might not
sweep out
where
this
you
kit.
want to be, Wukong.
Yeah, he's got the Warrior Trickster, so he will find his way back over the wall, as they're just trying to make sure they have a vision of the Baron Pit, so they can make sure they can make something happen if they do start the Baron, but it's so difficult to do when you're so far behind in terms of gold and in terms of map macro.
Yeah, for sure, and we can see the side of DZG just looking to, lick their wounds, trying to get back into this game, trying to stay alive, as this dragon is ticking down by the second. They know they will probably have to fight this dragon, or else DOGE, Infernal Dragon, with a really high damage comp that they have drafted for themselves, they can very well just go mid North American style and probably just blow them up right out of the gate.
Yeah, run down that NA RAM, as Monster Penguin will finish the Seraphs, but it's not the full Archangels just yet. And Tough Daddy, I'm a little disappointed. He does go for the Zhonya's for safety. I don't think it's bad, but I think the Cosmic Drive would have been a little bit better for him. Although the added safety on this Syndra, you already do so much damage on this champion. You probably don't exactly need it, as we do see Tough Daddy now hit that level 16. He's a couple of shards away from hitting that all-important mark, as Big Bold and Thick burned that Ghost. Poseidon his game did have to lose his Flash, actually, in the engage. And that's a pretty important cooldown for this Jinx.
They don't have vision.
Yeah, they do see Hybrid carry over the wall, but he's going to find the knockup, and with the Arctic Assault, Warrior Trickster can get out. The teleporters coming in from Mobster Penguin. We're going to have a 5 versus 5 in the face of this Soul Dragon. DZG has to make a contest happen. Something needs to be done here. Big Disrecon trying to find the front line. That's two-man stun. Looking for the engage on to the Olaf. The Sky's Descent is huge, but who's doing damage to the Olaf? Behind this game is getting bursted down. He's alive, though. He's on 1 HP. Monster Penguin's going to find Big Bold and Thick. The Moonlight Bishop doesn't find anybody. Better carry. Now, potentially, the target Sleeping Giant looking for his way in, but the Wild Growth on to the Drunk. He's looking to be Aphelios. He's looking to do damage. He can find damage onto Tough Daddy, but this is still the Syndra. The Execute is there. The Sleeping Giant now. The Drunk free to free fire. There's no one threatening him right now. He's full health with this red and white. It was red and blue, but it's now red and white, and that is a hard-winning fight. Dorado gaining Epsilon, and with the jungler of DZG down, that is just going to be Infernal Soul for Dorado.
Yeah, I mean, the jungler keeps being the one to die. Sleeping Giant is constantly getting picked off here in these key fights, and because of that, Dorado Gaming are able to sort of transition their one fights into objectives almost all the time, and it looks like they're looking at this Baron. We can see the bot lane and the jungler looking up, maybe just to clear vision, but there is a decent chance they can go for it here, as Sleeping Giant is still dead. He still has 5 seconds left on the death timer, but it doesn't look like they're going to go for it. Dorado Gaming, Epsilon, again, playing it safe, making sure they don't overextend. But yeah, a crucial fight there for Dorado Gaming. Epsilon puts them in the driver's seat of this game now that they have Soul, and they're looking to just extend it and end this game as quickly as they can.
Yeah, and as PBS just showed us, you can see across the board, the goldies are actually fairly evening out. It's really only about 1,000 to 2,000 between each member, although I say that like that is a small number. It really is the top lane right now. That is the name of the game. 4,000 gold ahead for Big Bald and Thick. That is such a huge lead as Monster Penguin now getting engaged on. The CC is there. A nice stun from Tough Daddy. The star will fall, but it does not even matter. Tough Daddy will find his 5th kill of the game, and with Monster Penguin down, that is a lot of DZG's magic damage, so if Dorado wanted to start up this Baron, they could probably do it near uncontested.
Yeah, for sure, and we can see they're starting up the Baron here. The members of DZG are around to potentially try and contest it, but it might not matter as Sleepy.
He's got the Warrior Trickster, the Cyclone doing plenty of damage, a nice wild growth, and the Zonics is going to keep him alive, but it's a huge mouth fight ultimate. Oh, where's the follow-up damage? They finally get the shutdown on the Tough Daddy, but Jake Report can't stay part of the fight anymore, so now it is just Olaf running onto the back line. He's doing Olaf things, but hang on, he's getting kited out. The AD carry still alive, Poseidon managing to find his way. Oh, they're going to survive with a sliver of HP. And in the meantime, the bottom side, they found the Infernal Soul for themselves, which means that Aphelios gets to do damage now. It's a triple kill for Aphelios. It's an ace for Dorado Epsilon, and that's got to be the bear for them as well.
Yeah, they're regenning here with the items. The Warmog's doing absolute wonders here for Hybrid Carry, as he's basically now up to full health here. Bobster Penguin, he does have the ultimate available now, but it will not matter as he will be spotted out by the Vision. Yeah, he's going to drop the star, but you're in a dangerous place here, Mobster.
Yeah, prison. He doesn't get caught by the axe, but Big Bald and Thick has the ghost on. I think he's just a little bit too fast for this poor Star Dragon to get away from. It's another ace. Only by technicality, as Jake Report had just respawned. That's going to be Dorado taking the map for themselves, and you just look across the board. It is a winning game for them across the board.
Yeah, Dorado Gaming looking to be the ones in control of this game, and really the only ones who could win this game for DZG are literally Dorado Gaming. They have to throw majorly at either this next Herald fight or just some random fight in order for this game to go in the favor of DZG, as it's looking dire for the red team here as we are on match point. So this could very well be the end for DZG's playoff runs, as Dorado Gaming looking to secure their spot here in the finals. All the members looking to push out the mid and bot waves. We can see the Drunk here in this bot lane just looking to get to that tower with the Baron buff, with the Infernal Soul. But on the other hand, we have the Olaf here in this mid lane. They're diverging their resources, making it difficult for DZG to respond, and we can just see the damage on the turret going through. DZG, they don't have a response.
Yeah, this is now a 3.5 item of Aphelios. It is so difficult to try and stand in his face. I do actually want to check really quickly, PBS. We've got Hybrid Carry. Hang on. Put that on pause as the Shrelius was burned. They're looking for an engage on to Invictus with Khan here. They are going to back off as the Aurelian Soul Black Hole is going to, you know, do its thing, keep the wave in place, make it easier for Jinx to do a little bit of wave thing, but it's not enough. Hang on, step 4 is going to get picked up, and now Big Bald and Thick trying to get the engage, but he's flashed away by Poseidon. Doesn't have that ultimate for himself anymore. Nice stun from Tough Daddy again. Huge amounts of damage into this Malphite. He's barely even tanky as the engage now comes through from Hybrid Carry. They're looking for the damage. The Sleeping Giant has that Warrior Trickster.
Poor clone.
Away. Yeah, that is the inhibitor down. These paired up minions are battering down this Nexus Tower as the Dorado Epsilon don't even care about the Nexus Tower. They've got the second inhibitor. The Sky's Descent is going to come through. They'll fight the stun of the knock on the Tough Daddy. It's a one-man ulti. They only find Hybrid Carry, and now this Malphite is just not tanky at all. Tough Daddy's going to find that one. Monster Penguin probably the next to fall. Has to dash away with the fight. And this Aphelios, look at that shield on him. He is just so tanky and so difficult to kill. And now with the wave coming in perfectly timed, by Dorado Gaming Epsilon. They're going to find this third inhibitor, and I think they'll just try and end the game here. DZG have
Yeah, look at the top wave.
There's the Shirelli as they're trying to make something happen. Urelian Soul trying to clear waves. There's the ulti, Sleeping Giant looking to get in, but it's a nice polymorph. The cycle will finally start, but there's no one to follow up. The drunk will go on a rampage. Still barely touched on this Aphelios. That shield is full. He is just so disgustingly tanky. The Monster Penguin is a double kill for the drunk. He's just walking forward. The Jinx Rocket will not hit its mark. The Nexus is open, and Dorado Gaming Epsilon with a triple kill. Or the drunk will punch their ticket to APL Finals.
Yeah, congratulations here to Dorado Gaming Epsilon. A clean series through and through, except for game 1. They did have a little bit of trouble. They managed to pull ahead. They managed to be a convincing team, and they have definitely earned their place here in the final. So really looking forward to see what they will do and, how they will, accelerate as they move on to the final stage.
Yeah, and obviously not a bad showing from DZG. I think they really did just get exposed in the drafts and in the gameplay. Big, Bald, and Thick on these carry style of top laners really showed what it can mean in terms of a top gap. It's really difficult to try and play around when you're the rest of the map and you have a hyper-fed Olaf running you down and you're playing Jinx. You're trying to scale. You're trying to kite away, but Olaf doesn't really allow you to do that.
Yeah, no, and Big, Bald, and Thick definitely has my MVP of the series here through and through. He was an incredible presence. Even in the game that Dorado Gaming Epsilon lost on that Gwen, he was still trying to look for plays, still trying to look for picks, still trying to look for any fight he possibly could there in this game. And so definitely worthy of the MVP spot, at least in my book. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that, Brittany, though. Who was your MVP of the series?
As much as I loved how much we talked about Big, Bald, and Thick and how much he put on a clinic in the top side, I think I have to give it to Tough Daddy in the mid lane. The unsung hero in games 2 and 3 on those Ahri performances, and in game 4 here, pulling out the Syndra, making it look insane in terms of just the damage he was able to pump out, and only being matched by the drunk on that Aphelios, who got to run absolute trains on team fights with the Luther behind him. I have to give it to Tough Daddy. It was an incredibly nice mid lane performance from him.
Yes, an incredible performance all around from Dorado Gaming Epsilon. As we've said multiple times, they punched their tickets to finals. I don't know if we know who they're going to play yet in the finals, but I am hoping that we'll find that out soon. But don't go anywhere. We are going to actually take a short break as we look to interview some of the winners from the winning team, that being Dorado Gaming Epsilon. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with an interview for more content. See you soon.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to our coverage of the APL semifinals. We have the interview here with top laner of Dorado Gaming Epsilon, Big, Bald, and Thick. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How about you?
We're doing
We're
pretty
doing
good. It was
great.
a pretty excellent performance that you put on in this series. In games 2, 3, and 4, I would say you were a standout carry on your carry picks. Do you feel happy with how you performed throughout that series?
On the games you said yeah. On the game you didn't say no.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about the game 1, the Maokai versus the Gwen performance, particular, because you did have some stunning performances on the Olaf and on the Jax. Was the Gwen just a particular weakness of a pick for you, or was it just the Maokai being a near impossible matchup?
As much as I'd like to say that there's some kind of, intricate, micro matchup specifics that contributed to that, I just played awfully. I took a really horrible trades, as Gwen generally, you're not supposed to trade that early, especially in a champion like Maokai. Not only that, I got stuck under his tower as well. He made a nice play. I got to hand it to him. He made a good plays on me during that matchup. And took advantage of him. He punished me for making mistakes.
Yeah, speaking of being punished for making mistakes, the drafting in particular, I think, was something that we harped on a lot on terms of the cast. The freedom that you had in terms of top lane picks because of the limited pool of the DZG top lane. Did you feel that sense of freedom? Did you feel like, oh yeah, I can pick any kind of carry here and I'll be totally fine?
Yeah, for the most part, I would say. I mean, going into it, we kind of in our preparations, we looked at what they'd played in their previous series, and it seemed as though he was always playing weak side on a tank, and there was a couple options, a couple different styles I thought might work well into it, but we ended up going with split push carry, and I felt like after the Gwen game, I kind of wanted Olaf because of the amount of CC and the amount of just front to back lockdown that they were drafting. But outside of that, I mean, I was putting a lot of pride on Olaf, but I did feel like there was a lot of different options that could have worked well into that guy's pool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And DZG Olympus, they were definitely a team that was pretty high up in the standings going here into this tournament. Was there any sort of nerves that you guys had as a team going into this game? I know that you, as your first series of the APL, you actually ended up beating them. So for that rematch, was there any sort of, extra emotion there, knowing that they looked to be a pretty good team going into this bracket?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, of course it's playoffs, so everybody's going to be trying to bring their best. And we certainly were trying to as well. We played DZG probably 6 or 7 times now in total. We played them our series in Aegis, like you mentioned. We played them in scrims. We met up with them in the clash during the season.
Wow.
And so we've had a lot of experience against them. We've played them a lot. We know they're a good team, and we knew they'd be trying their best tonight. So yeah, for sure, there was definitely heightened emotions. We were all really engaged tonight.
Yeah, and speaking of the finals, congratulations again for punching your ticket. And in the Aegis Esports 2 channel right now, if you guys want to go check that one out after we're done here, Richard and Horizon Zero are in their matchup right now, and it looks like Horizon might be able to take the series 3-1. Is that the opponent that you guys were expecting, or were you really only focused on this matchup today?
I would say that we were very focused on our match today. We normally prep match to match. We don't try not to prep a match in advance, but out of the two options, I think we were definitely prepared to face either one of them. I think either we all pretty much agreed either one of them could take the series. And we don't really I don't think we have a preference. We played both, or we played Richard's Riders more recently, and we've also seen them play against RDG more recently. So I think we have a little bit more info on them, but that's really the only swaying factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us here in the interview. And again, we can't say it enough. Congratulations on punching your ticket to the APL finals. We'll all be there ready to watch and hopefully see you guys have a good opponent and a good series. So congratulations on that one more time. So thank you for joining us in this interview and good luck in the next week.
Thank you. Got to let one out for the homies real quick.
One out for the homies. as my co-caster Quacks is saying, thank you all so much for joining us for this coverage of the APL finals. We are going to take you over to Aegis Esports 2, where they're covering the Richards Riders and the Horizon matchup. Horizon is up 2-1 in their series right now, so we'll see if they can potentially take it away and set themselves to finals alongside Dorado Gaming Epsilon. So I hope you stick with us as we transfer over to that channel. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
One moment to escape. Walking on the moon. Never been